Chapter 998. The Third Sky of Original God Realm. Chapter 998. The Third Sky of Original God Realm, _ Inside the battleship. Sheath's acupuncture points in his body sparkled like diamonds. Bright beams of light were emitted dazzlingly. His aura was sharp like a sword while he was sitting cross-legged. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua surrounded him in a triangle formation. They looked at him, yearning. Time flew quickly. Energy fluctuations on Sheath's body surged fiercely. Pure energy overflowed from his acupuncture points, seeping towards his bones and essence chi ancient tree. His energy surged unceasingly, making his aura more intimidating. After a while, Sheath's aura gradually calmed down. The light from his acupuncture points dimmed and vanished. Sitting quietly for a while, he opened his eyes, chuckling. You guys don't have a chance to gather more energy this time. Fei Lan and the other two were bewildered and then nodded silently. Sheath got up, stretching his body. Joints in his body moved, producing clear and pleasant sounds like pearls colliding. Third Sky of Original God Realm. Sheath smiled. This time, his breakthrough was as smooth as a stream joining the river. His essence chi ancient tree grew and his sea of consciousness extended. Everything went smooth and logically. He reached the new realm easily, which was the magical result of achieving the realm earlier. However, the deaths of 100 warriors of Drifting Cloud were just enough for Sheath to break through to Third Sky of Original God Realm. He didn't refine extra energy to send to Fei Lan and the other two. Most of the dead warriors were at King God Realm and some of them were at Original God Realm. Since their realms weren't high, the energy refined was limited. He got just enough to reach the new level. Senior, it's good that you can break through. We aren't hurried. When we get to Shadow Ghostly Prison, we will have a lot of chances. Ka Tua forced a smile. Fei Lan and Leona nodded. Sheath smiled and didn't say more. He got out of the cultivating room, telling the guard standing by his door that he wanted to meet Fu Wei. The guard led his way. Shortly after, Sheath arrived in Fu Wei's private room. The blue arch ceiling of this room was filled with pieces of gemstones, which was a resemblance to the starry sky. It illuminated the room with tender light, giving it an elegant and warm atmosphere. Youngster closed her eyes, her hands holding a lot of divine crystals. She was absorbing the energy of the divine crystals and the medical efficacy of the marvelous pellets she had eaten. Her face was calm like the water as her god domain appeared automatically. Water waves rippled around her like the deep sea. The black tortoise was the holy beast of water element. As Youngster got the inheritance from its bloodline, she knew water power Upanishad. Her god domain looked like a vast, torrential sea. It appeared quietly like the nature of water. Her aura was also immense and tender, making people relax. Youngster was cultivating in silence. Fu Wei was wearing a long blue dress, which exposed her white shoulder. She was drinking and watching Youngster with glistening eyes. She couldn't hide her surprise, indeed. She had given Youngster a lot of precious pellets and let her cultivate here. After the girl had swallowed the pellets, their medicinal efficacy quickly expanded. Instantaneously, Youngster's realm started to change subtly. Under the Fu Wei's gaze, Youngster began to comprehend water power Upanishad in a more profound level. She was breaking through to the new realm very fast. Fu Wei was surprised a lot. She observed carefully. She found that Youngster's realm was increasing steadily. The pellets she had taken were refining her body, merging with her flesh and bones. Youngster's bloodline seemed to have the essence of water. It gave her a marvelous feeling, allowing her to increase her realm unlimitedly. This discovery shocked Fu Wei. Her face became complex. Oh, you arrived. Fu Wei pulled herself together, smiling gently. She waved her hand at him, asking him to come closer. She muttered, "This little girl is a prodigy. She seems to not encounter any bottleneck. She is about to break through shortly. She has almost reached Third Sky of King God Realm. I don't know how she could comprehend her realm so easily like it's just a piece of cake to her. I have never seen anybody increase the realm that fast." Sheath focused on Youngster and nodded inwardly. He explained instinctively, "She's the unique prodigy." When they were still in the Sky Meteor City, Youngster had already been famous for her gifted talents. This lazy little girl hadn't put an effort in her cultivation, but she still reached high realm. Qishao had accepted her as an apprentice to nurture her talents. This little girl could comprehend her realm stunningly fast. A little bit of her effort could be as much as a long time of cultivation to other people. Once she became serious in her cultivation, her progress could be extremely fast. When Youngster encountered Xianming, the old man knew Youngster had the bloodline of the holy beast Black Tortoise. With her unique talent, her future would be unlimited if she focused on her cultivation. In Agate Star area, she had reached second sky of King God realm under a difficult cultivating condition, which showed how tremendously she was gifted. With Fu Wei's pellets, she was boosted. Her performance could shock even Fu Wei, who had seen a lot of things. It was enough to prove that Youngster was unquestionably a genius that this world had never seen. Well, this little girl told me many things about you. Fu Wei's eyes were twinkling. She smiled. I didn't know you were so famous in Grace Mainland. On that almost abandoned life star, you reached peak of true God realm in dozens of years. How did you do that? What Youngster had told Fu Wei about Shuryen had surprised her a lot. If she didn't know that Youngster was naive, she would have thought that the girl was telling lies. Within dozens of years in a nearly exhausted life star, a warrior had reached peak of true God realm from nothing. In Fu Wei's point of view, such a man was a monster indeed. Fu Wei suddenly recognized that it wasn't his good fortune that Shuryen got the approval from the leaders of Monster Clan and Demon Clan. He had something she didn't know yet. I heard you're amorous. Fu Wei smiled, talking softly. Light rippled from her eyes. Nah, don't listen to her. Shuryen rubbed his nose, feeling a little embarrassed. He suddenly remembered the woman in the faraway shadow ghostly prison. After so many years, he didn't know how she was doing. He also expected an encounter. Among so many young beauties, she was the first one who had touched his heart. In that martial yard in the Sky Meteor City where time was paused, he had a deep imprint, which stayed forever in his heart. After dozens of years, he didn't know if she was still like she used to be. A dark place shielded by the stars, Agate Star area. 6 life stars formed a hexagonal formation. However, those 6 stars weren't still. They moved like 6 gigantic beasts, slowly heading in a general direction. One of those life stars had hundreds of herbal fields where dozens of thousands of types of herbs grew. The thick, sweet fragrance of the herbs furled around the place. Mist and steam gathered here year-round and never dispersed. 10 massive cauldrons used to refine pellets stood amid the fields. Those cauldrons were made of different, strange metallic materials. The smoke from those cauldrons was so aromatic that they could even seep into people's internal organs. Taking a deep breath here, the warriors would feel refreshed and comfortable. A lanky ghost-mark old man had exquisite drawings and patterns on his arms and face. He wore luxurious clothes and was standing by the cauldrons. Behind him were more than 10 warriors at third sky of ethereal god realm. They seemed to be the retinue of that ghost-mark oldie who was checking the cauldrons. The old man walked between the cauldrons. Sometimes he nodded, smiling as if he was satisfied. Suddenly, a shadow descended from the sky, kneeling and talking respectfully. Great Elder. Zuolu frowned. He had an aquiline nose, the thin lips of a heartless man, and deep eyes. He looked malignant and cunning in general. He waved his hand to let the others stand up, speaking in a gloomy voice. Got anything? They seemed to have found the cannon. The messenger was also a ghost-mark warrior at third sky of ethereal god realm who had a little hoarse voice. The great elder of the potion and tool pavilions Zuolu's eyes brightened up. He laughed evilly. Good. Pausing for a while, he took a deep breath and spoke excitedly. Assign our men. We must blockade and seize the cannon at any cost. About little Fu Wei. I don't want to see her again. Yes, sir. The messenger drew his mouth into a fiendishly malicious curve and nodded. Clear everything. Do not leave any trace that would allow others to track us, advised Zuolu. I understand. The warrior replied and then flew up to the sky. Shortly after, he disappeared. Many orders were delivered in Potion and Tool Pavilion. They had contacted powerful forces that had a good relationship with them. Many forces in Agate Star area had sent their battleships discreetly. The cannon appears. Wahahaha. Except for me. No one eligible is to have it. Zuo Lu clasped his hands, looking at the sky and speaking arrogantly. The control center of the massive battleship. While Fu Wei was talking to Shi Yan, her countenance changed. She rose a bright mirror over her head and then nodded to Shi Yan. Give me a private moment, please. Shi Yan left the room, his face indifferent. Fu Wei walked to a secret room behind her chamber. The bright mirror followed her like a ghost. After closing the door, Fu Wei took a deep breath and released an electric beam from her palm. The mirror projected Jia Duo's image, the warrior with space power of Potion and Tool Pavilion. He looked pale as he was shouting. Our information is disclosed. Zuo Lu knows you have the cannon. He's going to shadow Ghostly Prison now. You have to be cautious. Try to protect yourself at any cost. I'm departing. We'll use the space teleport formation to reach you. Before I arrive, you must hold onto the cannon. Do not let them seize it. Fu Wei grimaced. Her blue eyes' color faded. She screamed in fright. How did it happen? Jia Lu has eyes and ears everywhere. His inside men scatter to every corner. He also controls the satellite eye. It's not strange that he got the news. Jia Duo sighed reluctantly. Great Elder has been in the pavilion for so many years. The forces they control aren't something we can rival. I knew that the information would be disclosed soon. You must be careful. Zuo Lu will do anything to get the cannon. I'm not sure if you can beat him. I'm going to shadow Ghostly Prison faster, said Fu Wei solemnly. Yeah, enter the shadow Ghostly Prison at your maximum speed. If you see a battleship on the way, avoid it as much as you can. Jia Duo advised her carefully. Do not cause any trouble. Do not conflict with any force. Once you find that some force is after you, use all your force to slaughter them if you can't dodge. Do not show mercy. I know what to do, Fu Wei nodded earnestly. Try your best to resist. We'll arrive soon. But before we arrive, you have to protect yourself. Understood. Chapter 999. Crisis, Opportunity. Chapter 999. Crisis, Opportunity, _. In the immensely vast galaxy, a battleship was moving at breakneck speed like lightning. In a secret room inside the battleship, Shi Yan was sitting neatly. There were some new books placed by him. All were related to the abilities of space power. He read each book. Sometimes he shook his head and sighed. Once he determined that a book was useless to him, it was burned down immediately. The books of Space Power Upanishad that Fu Wei had copied for him were from the original handwritten books by the warrior who cultivated Space Power Upanishad in Potion and Tool Pavilion. These books were his personal experiences. However, the owner of those writings didn't have a profound realm because Shi Yan had already known the secrets he jotted down in his books. Shi Yan's understanding of Space Power Upanishad was much deeper than most of the information that the writers of these books had. In Shi Yan's eyes, those records were shallow and useless to him. Shortly after, he had only one copy in his hand. Shi Yan squinted and read earnestly. From time to time, he read something that he needed to analyze and comprehend. His brows slowly furrowed. The writer of these documents had a unique approach and stress on space nodes. In his explanation, he assumed that space could become a globe with a lot of spider webs, and the intersections of the spider webs were space nodes. Space lines were used to connect different space nodes. Warriors who cultivated Space Power Upanishad could use space nodes to teleport. The space nodes were extremely unstable. Some could even lead to the chaotic space basin. However, most of the space nodes were stable enough that they could use Space Power Upanishad to get through them. There were as many space nodes inside the globe were as blinking stars in the sky. Ordinary people would never know or be able to touch them. Only warriors cultivating Space Power Upanishad at a specific realm could use the souls to recognize the nodes. According to the writer, marvelous space energy fluctuations were inside the space nodes. Once the soul vibe of the warriors cultivating space power resonated with the energy fluctuations in one space node, They could run directly into that space node and instantly teleport. Since Sheath had reached third sky of original God realm, his understanding of space power Upanishad in that magnificent, unknown space became deeper. He knew every space had space nodes. However, it was hard to detect them. After reading that document, Sheath recognized that if he could use his soul to touch the space nodes, he could have an exit regardless of where he was. With this thought in his mind, Sheath released his soul consciousness. Wisps of soul consciousness added with space energy moved like arrows that shot out of a bow. They scattered from him and entered the vast universe to find the space nodes. While he didn't recognize the passing time, his soul became bright and empty. A flow of his soul consciousness suddenly felt some energy fluctuations of the magical space energy, which were very fierce. His squinted eyes brightened. Taking a deep breath, his soul consciousness moved around, dedicatedly sensing the changes of space energy. Then, he adjusted himself and made his calm sea of consciousness seethe violently. He was trying to create the waves to resonate with the energy fluctuations over there. However, the energy in that area was so turbulent. It wasn't easy for his sea of consciousness to create the resonance. This was especially because Sheath had just touched the threshold. It was the first time he had ever comprehended the subtlety. Understanding the resonance of energy fluctuations was a slow and lengthy process. Sheath wasn't hurried. It was too dull in this battleship. He'd better study his power Upanishad then. Time flew hurriedly. Today, Sheath was still immersed in space energy resonance. His sea of consciousness surged as if it was about to explore. All of a sudden, a flow of his soul consciousness, which had elongated to an unknown area, reported to Sheath with a panic feeling. Right after that, he saw many shark-like battleships as black as ink moving fast in a direction. A fear reflected in his head. Sheath stopped his space energy resonating work to check the wisp of soul consciousness that had reported the black shark battleships. There were dozens of them. They were around 1,000 to 3,000 meters long. It was obvious that they belonged to one force. They were moving in a neat formation. Some dark clouds covered the battleships, preventing people from looking at the interior. Each battleship had a fiercely torrential energy with a ferocious aura. Navigating, Sheath shuddered. He immediately retreated his soul consciousness. Staying inside the battleship, Sheath's face became more solemn. He shot up from his seat, walking out of his room. Fei Lan and the other two were cultivating in their private rooms, so they didn't know about Sheath's commotion or his discovery. "Sir, where do you want to go?" asked a guard standing in front of his door with respect. "I want to meet your elder Fu Wei. Please notify her immediately." Sheath was cold and stern. He looked a bit hurried. The guard nodded and told him, "Follow me." Shortly after, Sheath walked to the control center of the battleship with his guide. Fu Wei and Yun and Fengin, the three leaders of Potion and Tool Pavilion, were there. They were discussing something. Seeing him, they stopped immediately. The guard left the room. Sheath took a deep breath and then said, "A fleet of battleships is heading fast towards us. They're moving really fast. I estimate that they will reach us in 4 hours. There are dozens of them. They come with murderous auras. Seems like they don't have good intentions toward us." Fu Wei discolored in fright. She jolted from her seat, her soft body shivering. "Which direction? What kind of battleships are they? What's the situation?" And Yun and Fengin grimaced. They clenched their jaws, their face malicious. "Young elder." "It's them," said Yun. Fu Wei nodded, raising her small hand to stop the woman. Her eyes gazed at Sheath. She knew warriors who cultivate space power could reach a very long distance with their soul consciousness. Although it couldn't cover a large area, one fine beam of soul consciousness could reach much further than what the others could reach. Those battleships are black like ink. They look like sharks. There are dozens of them. They have many symbols. Most of them are black and blue. A few are purple. Sheath recalled and described what his soul consciousness had seen. Blue and black shark battleships of the Ghostmark clan. Yun took a cold breath, her face grim. Those shark battleships are manufactured by the force under Great Elder's party. Great Elder used to be a member of the Ghostmark clan. Those blue and black shark battleships belong to the Mad Shark fleet of the chief of Ghostmark clan. Yeah, it can't be wrong. They're heading towards us. Fu Wei put on a cold face and nodded. Then, she didn't talk but started to release magnificent light beams towards the corners of the control center. Boom, boom. Ear-splitting explosions blasted from the bottom of the battleship, which changed its direction immediately. Energy from countless divine crystals was drawn from this deviation. The battleship moved like lightning from outer space, heading fast in the new direction. After it was done, Fu Wei wiped the sweat on her forehead. She looked a little tired, trying to smile at Sheath. She said softly this time, "I have to thank you." "What happened?" Sheath frowned. "The cannon's whereabouts are disclosed," Fu Wei sighed weakly. "Great Elder's party wants to seize the cannon. He has urged the forces to cooperate with him. They will kill us and take the cannon. They don't want our party to keep it." Sheath was surprised, but he just nodded nonchalantly. "You guys can endure it or not. Who knows?" Fu Wei whispered in dismay. She pondered for a while and then said to Sheath, "I thought we could deliver you guys smoothly to Shadow Ghostly Prison. But now there is an issue. Going with us isn't a good idea for you guys." "Okay, so." Fu Wei looked at Yun, asking, "Anton, you choose the best war chariot and send them off." Yun bent her body to greet and left. "Hold on," Sheath waved his hand to stop them. He asked coldly, "Will you fight against them? If you encounter them, will you do your best to defend and destroy the enemies?" Of course, Fu Wei's eyes were cold. Her brows showed her murderous aura. "They come this time to wipe us out in a single operation. Of course, we will resist with our best efforts. We will not show mercy." Sheath smiled coldly. "Good. I'll stay to fight with you guys." Fu Wei and Yun and Feng'an were surprised. They looked at him with odd faces. "No, it has nothing to do with you. You just find trouble for yourself staying with us. We're not sure if we can defeat them or not. Why do you need to take risks with us?" Fu Wei's blue eyes rippled strangely. She felt something touching her heart. She said tenderly, "There are many Mad Shark battleships of the Ghostmark clan. I'm not sure if I can deal with them. Do you really want to stand on the same side with us and fight against them?" "Oh yeah," Sheath grinned. He didn't say more. He turned around and left the control center. He wanted to go to Shadow Ghostly Prison, even though he knew that the place was madly chaotic. He knew the place where warriors died continually was the best place for him. It was the key for him to transform. This time, it was going to be a rare chance. He didn't want to let it go. Fu Wei and the other two didn't know what he was thinking. After he had left, they looked at each other in astonishment. "This man, he does employ the code of brotherhood." Yun was baffled for a while. "It's worth your feelings for him. In danger, he doesn't run away to protect himself. He wants to stay with us. Such a good man." Feng'an nodded. "I didn't expect him to be that way. I misunderstood him before. I thought he was a type of greedy man. I had never thought that he would help us in a time of danger." Fu Wei thinned her lips. She smiled tenderly and then said, "I didn't expect that either." He chose to stay. "Time to feast, guys." Inside the battleship, Sheath woke up Fei Lan, Leona, and Katua. He grinned. "Previously, we didn't harvest enough energy. This time, I will feed you until you're full." Fei Lan and the others' eyes brightened, their faces expecting a good harvest. Chapter 1000, A Former Pursuer. Chapter 1000, A Former Pursuer, _ The observation platform of a black shark battleship. Du Lin wore blue combat clothes with gold-plated hems. He looked handsome with blue tattoos on his face. The corner of his mouth always held a tender smile. Two enchanting and charming sisters were leaning close to him. They were holding a glass of wine and a tray of fruits, serving him with smiles. Du Lin was the most prominent young talent of the new generation of Ghostmark clan. He had third sky of ethereal god realm cultivation base. This young man was a genius and a potential candidate for the chief position of the Ghostmark clan. He was born in the most influential family of Ghostmark clan, the one with the tough, placid minds. Du Lin managed the Mad Shark fleet, which consisted of 49 battleships. This force was the mightiest force of the Ghostmark clan. Du Lin smiled tenderly, sitting on the stone platform imposingly. The two beauties served him, making him comfortable while he looked at the immense galaxy with his dark, deep eyes. Fu Wei. Du Lin chuckled as his eyes became hot. He extended his arms, hugging the two ladies and enjoying their sexy bodies. Under the stone platform, the Ghostmark clan soldiers were stooping. They didn't dare to look at Du Lin on the high platform. Their faces showed their admiration and respect for their commander. Swoosh! A shadow glided from inside the battle. He kneeled down before Du Lin. Young Master, Fu Wei's battleship changed its direction. They now have sped up twice. Mad Shark fleet was built by Du Lin's family. All the soldiers addressed him as Young Master. Du Lin's family was the most potent force of the Ghostmark clan. To boost Du Lin and give him the most powerful influence, his family had spent a lot of materials to build him Mad Shark battleships with the hope that he could set his foot on the glorious chief position of the clan. They changed the route? Du Lin squinted while his big hands were still lingering on the beauty's waist and rear. He thought for a while and then burst out laughing. Seems like she knows we're here. What should we do now? The other kneeled and lifted his head to look at Du Lin. Scatter the Mad Sharks and circle them. As long as we can beat their speed, they will be surrounded by our frenzy of sharks. Then, they will never get out. Du Lin waved his hand, talking indifferently. Although her battleship is a good one, she is only one. She can't resist us. I got it, sir. The man left. Arrogant Fu Wei. Let's see how you deal with me this time. Du Lin enjoyed drinking and playing with the two beautiful sisters. He looked tender when he embraced a girl, whispering to her, "You should belong to me. It's time to put my belle into my gold palace." The two girls smiled servilely and charmingly, hugging him tightly. They wanted to win him over. On the deck of the massive battleship, Fu Wei and In Yun stood silently. They were observing their surroundings. Their soul consciousness rippled like water waves. They could sense any commotion around. Warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion scattered in each corner of the deck. They were all stern, watching everywhere cautiously. The commander of those Mad Shark battleships is Du Lin. And Yun kept silent for a while. Suddenly, she looked at Fu Wei. She spoke with a face strange. Du Lin used to pursue you crazily. Fu Wei set her line of sight to the place afar, frowning. She also had a deep impression of Du Lin. He was the prominent and good-looking talent of the new generation of the Croc family. He had an amazing innate endowment which was proven when he reached peak of ethereal god realm in just a short time. He was so tender and handsome. However, what made him special was that he was crazy about Fu Wei. The Croc family was the oldest and strongest family in the Ghostmark clan. They could compare to the Feng Du family, the family of the current Ghostmark clan's chief. The former head of the Crocs had made a mistake while breaking from ethereal god realm to incipient god realm. He couldn't make any progress. That was why he couldn't beat the Feng Du family to become the next chief of Ghostmark clan. Anyway, a thin camel is still bigger than a horse. The Croc family was still the strongest force of the Ghostmark clan. Du Lin of the current generation was the powerful character of the Crocs. He shouldered the hope of the entire family. Zuo Lu, great elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, was also one of the Crocs of the Ghostmark clan. However, a former precursor of Potion and Tool Pavilion had made him his apprentice and separated him from the Ghostmark clan when he was young. Zuo Lu had always been concerned about the Croc family of the Ghostmark clan. After he had known about Du Lin, he had discreetly sent his staff to gift him a lot of precious cultivating materials. The fact that Du Lin could break through so quickly was closely related to Zuo Lu's sufficient support. When Fu Wei's teacher had passed away, Zuo Lu tried to recruit her for his team. He had arranged Du Lin with Potion and Tool Pavilion and set up plans for him to pursue her. Zuo Lu hoped Du Lin could marry her so she could assist Zuo Lu. Previously, Du Lin had spent a lot of his efforts to win her heart. However, due to the different parties they had followed, she didn't want to go on the same path as Zuo Lu. Eventually, she denied him resolutely. Du Lin was a bright gentleman. He always got the girls he wanted in the Ghostmark clan and Agate Star area. However, after Fu Wei had rejected him, he changed. He was depressed for a while. After he got the shadow out of his heart, he became uncontrollable in his personal relationships. Du Lin. Fu Wei recalled the man, sighing weakly. Du Lin is at third sky of ethereal god realm. He has 49 mad shark battleships. If they scatter and circle us, we won't be able to get rid of that trap, said Yun seriously. Fu Wei contemplated for a while and then ordered, once we find the battleships of the mad shark fleet, we will smash them down if they stand in our way at any cost. Once we attack them, we'll break the rules. Young Elder, are you sure? Yun was surprised. Du Lin is from the same clan as Great Elder. Naturally, he will protect the Great Elder's benefits. We know this since Great Elder has sent him here. Fu Wei forced a smile. Unless I give them the cannon and marry Du Lin, they will never let us go. As we've come to this, we can't return. We must be resolute. Yun nodded, I understand. While inside the cultivating room, Shiyan listened to Zhuo and Xianming's stories as they had to struggle a lot to survive. Occasionally, he sighed. Zhuo and Xianming didn't have his luck. After they had arrived in Agate Star area, they used to work as miners or slaves on herbal farms. For the divine crystals, they had to eat bitter fruits and bear the humiliation. The peak characters in Grace Mainland were just low people in high-grade star areas. Glory and powers in the past weren't worth mentioning here. They had to start everything from the beginning. To many people, this was really cruel. Today, Xianming had reached level 12 in Monsters Cultivating ranking. Zhuo had reached peak of King God Realm thanks to Fu Wei's pellets. She had surpassed Xianming. It reflected the fact that Zhuo was a real prodigy. Shiyan GG, how about you? How have you been? Have you experienced the same things? Did you have to struggle a lot to survive? Zhuo eyed him and asked in a low tone. Xianming also looked at him, his face curious. Me? Shiyan smiled miserably. Yeah, at first, my situation was even worse than yours. I used to be a human cauldron. If my body hasn't been special, I would have been dead. He remembered the painful past when he had just arrived in Raging Flame Star area. Today, he recalled the utmost bitter moments when he thought about it. If Ziyao hadn't brought him to Dark Firmament Heaven Nation, the alchemist of Underworld League would have soon killed him. Warriors from the low-grade star area entering the high-grade star area did have old, struggle-filled stories to tell. He wasn't an exception. However, he had survived even though it was a bit reluctant. He had struggled through Raging Flame Star area like a fish in troubled waters. After he had come to Agate Star area, he also had tough times. Anyway, he still stood firm. You've taken troubles, said Zhuo. Shiyan smiled at her. Your father and other fellows are living well now. Don't worry about them. They're safe and they have a secure source of cultivating materials. After we are done with things here, I'll take care of you. You don't need to worry about stuff anymore. I knew you were the best. Zhuo's eyes were like the crescent moon. Her smile was innocent and cute. I thought we would never meet again. It's good to see you, GG. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua sat in 3 different corners of the cultivating room, squinting as if they were half-conscious. The battle will start soon. Shiyan got up, retreating his elongated soul consciousness. He told Zhuo and Xianming, you guys stay here and don't act rashly. You can't join this level of battle. Just stay here and cultivate. Isn't it a battleship of potion and tool pavilion? Xianming was perplexed. Is there any force that dares to attack potion and tool pavilion? There's no absolute in everything, Shiyan chuckled. He didn't explain in details. He nodded to Fei Lan and the other 2 and then headed out of the room. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua immediately got up and followed him. We may encounter them shortly, said Shiyan as soon as he reached the deck. Shiyan saw the guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion watching at their spots cautiously. Fu Wei and Yun and Feng'an were stern. Hearing his voice, they turned around to see him. The enemy's battleships have scattered. They're going to besiege us from all directions. They're weaving a thick mesh net. Unless we can break their net and get rid of their siege, things will get tough since we will be surrounded. Shiyan looked ahead of them, slightly narrowing his eyes. 2 battleships are waiting in front of us. We will meet them in 1 hour. We can't avoid them. If we change our route now, we will just head to their net sooner. Fu Wei was still calm, smiling. You understand the situation well. And Yun and Feng nodded to greet Shi Yan. Since they'd known Shi Yan, they decided to stay and fight with them. Their attitude towards him had changed. In their eyes, Shi Yan didn't try to protect only himself. He joined others in combat, which showed his excellent code of brotherhood. Of course, they didn't know Shi Yan's other conspiracy. Have you prepared everything well? Said Shi Yan calmly. It's okay. Although Potion and Tool Pavilion doesn't participate in battles in the star area, we aren't afraid of fighting, you know. Fu Wei smiled tenderly. She suddenly straightened her back, chinned up, and spoke bravely. We will show you how strong we are soon. Shi Yan's eyes brightened and he nodded quietly. He knew that Potion and Tool Pavilion weren't ordinary. However, rumors about the competence and powers of Potion and Tool Pavilion in Agate Star area weren't clear enough. Today, as he got a lucky chance to fight with Fu Wei, perhaps he would have a good chance to see Potion and Tool Pavilion's real power. Chapter 1001. Eat Meat. Chapter 1001. Eat Meat. Fu Wei, Shi Yan, and the others gathered at the control center of the battleship. A bright, big mirror showed the star area around. The walls of this control center had many marks. Each of them had fiercely surging energy. Fu Wei was calmly looking at the bright mirror. Her fingers shot out light beams from time to time. Slowly, a black shark battleship emerged in the mirror. It was right ahead of them, hiding like a shark waiting for its prey. Fu Wei's blue eyes sparkled with a brutal light. A light beam shot out from her palm, hitting a lozenge imprint. The imprint became brilliantly dazzling. Almost 1 million divine crystals at the bottom of the battleship released their turbulently abundant energy at the same time. Blinding light fired from a long pole that looked like a drill bit in the front of the ship. A formidable light grumblingly shot out. The light column moved like a mad dragon, bringing along endless torrential energy. Just like a meteor chasing after the moon, it hit the black shark battleship violently. Boom! The dim galaxy was suddenly illuminated brilliantly. The black shark battleship exploded at the moment of the impact. At that moment, the black shark battleship was fragmented, and the dozens of warriors on the ship died in that crazy flow of energy. Many members of the Ghostmark clan were wounded and bleeding. They evacuated from the shattered battleship. Some of them risked their lives and flew towards the massive battleship. Boom! Countless barriers and restrictions of the big battleship were activated. A massive halo covered the entire battleship. While bombarding the warriors flying around, Fu Wei's gigantic battleships wantonly moved like a huge monster. Shi Yan was dumbstruck. Seeing the black shark battleship get shot down in just a blink of an eye, he now knew how terrifying the power of Potion and Tool Pavilion's battleship was. That crystal artillery used divine crystals as the source of energy. It absorbed energy from millions of divine crystals to create a light column that blasted and crushed the black shark battleship. It was evident that Potion and Tool Pavilion had varied and profound applications of divine crystals. They could use them to load the crystal artillery to break anything. This kind of powerful lethality was enough to crush even a third sky of ethereal god realm expert. Swoosh! 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 The engine hissed loudly inside the battleship as if the artillery was reloading. The Ghostmark warriors scattered to everywhere and then risked their lives by attacking the light curtain on the battleship directly. That halo was created by dozens of barriers and restrictions, which provided the ship with a tremendous defensive ability. More than 10 Ghostmark warriors at King God Realm and Original God Realm urged their powers Upanishad. Fire, ice, storm, and thunderbolts showered on the light curtain protecting the ship. The light curtain distorted a little, but it wasn't broken. Beautiful sparks were sent into outer space like brilliant fireworks that touched people's souls. Shi Yan flew out quietly from the control center, descending on the deck. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes slightly. His soul consciousness extended like magical tentacles. They found the broken bodies of the Ghostmark warriors, pulling them near the light curtain of the battleship. After a while, He got more than 10 pieces of broken bodies hovering above the light curtain. The essence chi of these flesh bodies hadn't vanished yet. Flows of murky energy with negative moods from those bodies pierced through the light curtain and flooded Sheath's acupuncture points. The vortexes inside his 720 acupuncture points started to revolve. They dragged the essence chi of the dead and refined it. Sheath grinned, laughing evilly. His laughter was cruel and yet happy. His acupuncture points were taking in the essence chi of more than 10 dead bodies of the ghost mark warriors. This wonderful feeling made him smile. The murderous intention in his heart was heating up. He felt his blood boiling. Fei Lan, Leona, and Katua observed the commotion. They followed him flying out of the control center. They now surrounded him to protect him. They saw that more than 10 broken bodies hovering above the light curtain were dried, as if the water and blood inside were all sucked out. Fei Lan's team was shaken. They had a high expectation this time. They knew this time that they would be able to eat meat. Boom, boom, boom. Shockwaves created by the powers Upanishads of the ghost mark warriors continually struck the protective halo like an unceasing thunderstorm. The magical light curtain rippled like water, shielding the battleship from all kinds of attack. In outer space, it sparkled radiantly like a beautiful star, sending sparks everywhere. Kill! From the deck of the battleship, several hundred guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion shouted and flew out. Instantaneously, powers Upanishads including metal, lightning, ice and mist, gusts of wind, sound, and light appeared. Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards stayed inside the protective halo and struck their attacks through the halo, aiming at the ghost mark warriors outside the halo. Shortly after, 5 or 6 ghost mark warriors were shot down. They swayed like willow catkin and fell on the barrier. Sheath's eyes brightened. He stooped and smiled, pulling the void. The shattered bodies of the ghost mark warriors gathered on the light curtain above Sheath's head. Their blood had dyed a large area of the light curtain. The thick scent of blood seemed to diffuse through the curtain, nauseating people. Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards didn't know why Sheath wanted to gather the dead bodies. They didn't bother with his commotion anyway and just hid under the protective halo and attacked others. The light curtain of Fu Wei's battleship was made of a combination of different barriers and restrictions. It had a terrific defensive ability. If they wanted to attack this battleship, they had to break this protective halo first. At the same time, Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards were able to stay inside the protected area and attack the others. This kind of protection didn't stop their attacks, anyway. Among hundreds of Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards, most of them were at King God Realm and Original God Realm. There were also a few Ethereal God Realm experts. When they had attacked with all their abilities, powers Upanishads exploded like a thunderstorm in the void. Lightning strikes blasted. Icy snowstorms twirled. They were wreaking havoc above the protective halo, shading the sunbeam and moonlight. Sheath and Fei Lan's team hadn't done anything yet. They sat quietly on the deck, watching the magnificent fireworks blooming out there above the light curtain. Looking at the dead ghost mark warriors, they were enjoying the absorption of thick essence chi. They were indeed so happy. Pieces of broken bodies fell on the light curtain above Sheath's head. There were around 20 pieces this time. Blood puddled and dripped, creating an area of blood-red light that people could not turn their eyes from. Squinting and pressing down negative moods in his body, Sheath's acupuncture points were madly filtering and refining essence chi. Gradually, he felt his acupuncture points get swollen and aching. It was a sign of the brimming energy. Grinning fiendishly, he stooped and spoke to Fei Lan, Leona, and Katua. "We've harvested big this time." The other 3 nodded eagerly. Rumble, rumble. The energy of countless divine crystals was released one more time. The battleship, moving at breakneck speed, accelerated again. It flew like a crazy monster, heading in a direction. Layers of light curtain expanded and covered the entire battleships. At this moment, it became tough and sharp that it could break everything. The wrecked Black Shark battleship hovering in its way was smashed into debris or even powder if impacted directly with Fu Wei's battleship. Fu Wei's battleship was excellent in both defending and attacking with divine crystals as the fountain of energy. Its lethality was terrifying indeed. Shiryen didn't dare to underestimate this battleship's competence anymore. He believed that if he got shot by such crystal artillery, his god body would burst into pieces. Although the battleship was moving fast and fiercely, Fu Wei didn't look comfortable in the control center. She frowned as she had a premonition that the next wave of Mad Shark battleships would be more furious. It's not easy to deal with Du Lin, and Yun sounded serious. The Mad Shark fleet has 49 battleships. Although their defensive ability isn't good, their speed is incredible. I think while we had a fight over there, they have formulated a new plan already. Fu Wei nodded. She sounded calm as usual. I understand. Young Elder, you have used her soul to lock the battleship and control the attacking formations of the battleship. You've consumed a lot of soul energy, and you can't do that for a long time, right? Asked Yun. Fu Wei gave a forced smile. It's all right. I'm going to adjust my condition. While talking, she took out refreshing green pellets and swallowed. Her pale cheeks had some colors afterward. This excellent defensive and attacking battleship had thousands of formations, imprints, and restrictions that needed the soul energy to control. It wasn't an easy task, though. When Fu Wei controlled the battleship, she was like the brain of the ship as she had to manage all details of this massive ship. She had to consume her soul energy every minute. Their quick triumph this time was thanks to her concentrated control. However, it cost her soul energy. If the combat became fiercer, each wisp of her soul consciousness had to create a connection with the barriers, imprints, and restrictions. When that happened, her soul energy would be consumed massively. Did they get out there? After Fu Wei had swallowed the pellets, she took a short period to digest. When her energy was restored a little bit, she had time to ask about Shiryan's team. And Yun nodded with an odd countenance. They have soon left to the deck. Fu Wei was surprised. He joined the combat. No, and Yun's face became even stranger. We don't know why he gathered the bodies of our enemies and looked at them from under the light curtain. I don't know what he had done. Fu Wei became skeptical. She didn't know what Shiryen was doing. Pondering for a while, she said begrudgingly, "Never mind them. They know what to do. If they agree to stay, I think they won't have any bad intention towards us." "Yes, I think they have some plans, but they won't harm us," nodded Yun. Fu Wei didn't say more. She concentrated on the bright mirror to observe and arrange for the next attack wave of the Mad Shark. She understood clearly that the next wave wouldn't be as easy as this time. She knew how excellent Du Lin was. It wasn't going to be easy to defend the next time then. Chapter 1002, The Blood Blade Comes Out of Its Sheath. Chapter 1002, The Blood Blade Comes Out of Its Sheath, Shiryen shot up from his seat. His eyes were blood red while murderous auras in his body soared up into the sky. Lifted up his head to look at the light curtain dyed in the red hue of blood, Shiryen grinned and spoke to Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua. "Let's get out there." The other three nodded quietly. This group of four pierced through the protective halo like four electric beams and headed towards the Ghostmark warriors lagging behind. More than 10 warriors of the Ghostmark clan were struck helter-skelter. After the gigantic battleship had smashed their battleship and flew away quickly, they were left behind. At this moment, Shiryan's group of 4 was aiming at those left warriors. While his thought was flickering, a desolate aura diffused from Shiryen. Blood floating in outer space gathered, creating a blood sea. The thick scent of blood permeated the place. Shiryen immersed in that blood sea, his eyes blood red and his face icy cold. The divine ability of death power Upanishad, the blood soul sea. The blood sea extended, covering each of the remaining Ghostmark warriors. Negative moods including despair, fear, bloodthirstiness, and brutality flooded their minds violently. Shortly after, the Ghostmark warriors went crazy. They started to attack anybody near them. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua hunted them down like 3 brutal dragons. They activated their powers Upanishads and started to kill those Ghostmark warriors. In that group of Ghostmark warriors, there were only 2 ethereal god realm experts. One was at second sky and the other was at first sky. Fei Lan released her ethereal extent, which was a space of erosive energy, to roll the second sky of ethereal god realm expert who was damaged by potion and Tool Pavilion's guard. Staying in a block of the darkness as thick as ink, Leona eyed the other first sky of ethereal god realm warrior. Leona disappeared as if she had completely mixed with the dark. She then sent darkness to the other's soul. Ka Tua urged his chaos power Upanishad. With his body as the eye, he created a formidably horrifying meat grinder field, which attracted the ghost mark warriors. Shuryen controlled the blood soul sea and made it move towards Ka Tua, shrouding all the warriors attracted by Ka Tua's chaotic, twisted energy. Painful screeching arose from the ghost mark warriors. They were filled with despair and fear as if they were watching the most terrible things in their lives. Their screams rose the hair on people's napes. Usually, the scream came together with a person's death. His god body disappeared in the blood soul sea while his soul altar was sent out. The black hole in his soul altar had swallowed the other souls discreetly. The massive battleship halted. Yun discolored, crying in fear. They got out there and hunted down the others. Fu Wei gritted her teeth and scolded in a low voice. Impulsive. They will affect our progress. Du Lin will have more time to arrange his formation to block us. Yun paled. Damn, they didn't notify us. They act so rashly. So what if they can kill all of them? We'll still be trapped. Fu Wei nodded. They will affect our progress for sure. Young elder. Yun took a deep breath, speaking resolutely. We can't wait for them. We have to break their besiege at our max speed. If we delay, bad things will happen. Fu Wei furrowed her bold brows. She touched the bright mirror floating above her head. The mirror then showed a dark area and a blood sea. They couldn't see Shuryen, Ka Tua, and Leona. They only saw Fei Lan, who was using her corrosion power Upanishad to attack one ghost mark expert. Watching for a while, Fu Wei was frightened. She shouted, "Look." Yun looked at the mirror. She was shocked immediately. They attacked too fast. There was around 20 ghost mark warriors remained. Most of them were at original god realm. Even if Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards wanted to kill them, they couldn't do it in a short time. However, the 4 of Shuryen's group had killed half of the ghost mark warriors shortly after they had left the battleship. The remaining warriors inside the Blood Sea were all crazy as they were killing each other. At this speed, perhaps all of the ghost mark warriors would be killed all in just a short time. This frightened Fu Wei and Yun. They were fearful because of the fighting competence of Shuryen's group. Only 4 warriors. Fu Wei was baffled. She pondered for a while and then ordered. We'll wait 15 minutes for them. When the time's up and they haven't returned, we will leave. Yun was surprised. She nodded. Their fighting competencies are so frightening. They are powerful individuals indeed. It's a waste to leave them. She was surprised a lot seeing the performance of Shuryen's team. She immediately wanted to change her plan. From the bright mirror, Fu Wei and Yun could see the ghost mark warriors get killed one after another. Their god bodies exploded in the blood sea. They were screaming and roaring. Gradually, they forgot who they were. Their vitality was taken away and their bodies dried up in the end. Inside the darkness, Leona was invisible. The first sky of ethereal god realm expert, her opponent, was perplexed. His eyes turned pitch black as if darkness had covered his brain. He appeared so painful and pathetic. The second sky of ethereal god realm expert didn't know why his energy was decreased unceasingly. The corrosive energy had seeped into his body. He was soon killed. Fu Wei and Yun watched everything in silence. They became aghast. Sometimes they stooped and cried in fear. Who are they? After a while, Yun whispered as if she was sleep-talking. The 4 of them all have the capacity to challenge warriors whose realms are higher than theirs. Their individual powers Upanishads are so special. They aren't popular, indeed. Their fighting competencies are enough to kill warriors at higher realms. Oh my god, who are they? Aliens? Fu Wei was also bewildered. Their powers Upanishads are evil and rare. Their energy is abundant and much more than people at the same realm. They can resist higher realm warriors, indeed. The powers Shuryen, Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua were cultivating were extremely rare. They were the inheritances of the bloodthirsty cortege of 8. The cultivating path they followed was an extreme, cruel one. People would never tolerate their powers. Once they used their powers, if their opponents didn't know about those special powers Upanishad, they would be killed shortly. In just a blink, the last scream arose on that battle site, putting an end on this combat. More than 20 Ghost Mark warriors were killed. No one escaped. Their god bodies and soul altars were annihilated, leaving nothing behind. Shuryan's eyes were garnet. At this moment, he emerged from the blood sea. Glancing at the big battleship behind, he adjusted his condition. Shortly after, his eyes resumed their normal colors. The brutal, evil aura was still being diffused from his body. After circulating his energy for several rounds, he flew towards the battleship. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua were covered in blood. They looked like 3 savage beasts, closely following behind Shuryan. The light curtain of the battleship slightly shrank. Warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion stood on the deck, looking at the 4 of them with complicated countenances. The warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion all felt a vague fear looking at them. They were shocked, watching their performance. When the 4 of them landed on the deck, Potion and Tool Pavilion's warriors couldn't help but step back and maintain a distance from them. Fu Wei walked to them from the control center. Her blue eyes had rippling light as she studied the 4 of them. "Thank you for your labor." And Yun stood by her, discreetly gathering her energy. She was cautious as she was afraid that the other 4 who had been excitedly killing the enemies would have some wild commotion. "You don't look good." Shuryan glanced at her, frowning. "You must be drained controlling this big battleship." "But it's okay. Later on, I'll help you." Fu Wei and Yun were bewildered. Shuryan walked towards his cultivating room inside the battleship and didn't bother to explain more. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua followed him silently. Potion and Tool Pavilion's warriors along the way would instinctively step aside to make their way. Shortly after, Shuryan's team had disappeared into the battleship and from Fu Wei and Yun's sight. Feng'an emerged from nowhere. He lowered his voice, talking with a complicated visage. "This man is absolutely not a fish in the stagnant pond." Fu Wei and Yun nodded, totally agreeing with him. "Young elder, he said he would help you." "What does he mean?" Yun was still baffled, asking. Shaking her head, Fu Wei didn't understand his intention, either. "I don't know what he meant. I think Du Lin didn't know about this kind of assistance on our battleship." Yun recalled something, her eyes glittering. "Perhaps we can escape this time." Fu Wei relaxed and nodded. "Yeah, maybe we can resist until Uncle Duo comes." Everybody was cheered up. Deep in the sea of stars, black and blue shark battleships hovered, aligning in a conical formation. They blockaded one of the most critical checkpoints of this galaxy. Du Lin was smiling gently on the leading battleship as he was listening to his subordinate's report. Sometimes he nodded. It seemed that the wrecked battleship with its several hundred dead warriors couldn't affect his mood. He was still calm and he smiled as usual. Resolute and cruel enough. "Not bad. Not bad. Seems like she doesn't mind our old relationship." "Young master," hissed a man kneeling in front of him. Waving his hands to indicate that he knew it, Du Lin said, "Don't worry. I know what to do. The cannon is our top priority this time. I know how to solve this." The other didn't say more. "Be prepared." Du Lin took a deep breath. The smile on his face ceased. "There are 6 hours left. After 6 hours, they will be arriving here. Haha, at that time, what they have to face isn't only one battleship. It's our whole Mad Shark fleet." The other warriors replied to him. Their enthusiastic shouts echoed from each battleship like loud thunderclaps. Chapter 1003. Better Not to Meet. Chapter 1003. Better Not to Meet, _ Inside the battleship. Shuryan, Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua sat neatly while the bloodlines from Shuryan's body connected the other 3. Energy fluctuated like a flowing river and seeped into their bodies. The magical energy in this cultivating room was so thick that it couldn't vanish quickly. The blood marks on the forehead of Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua were like eyes that sparkled in blood-red halo. Through this mark, they collected abundant and pure energy from Shuryen. It gave a tonic to each of their soul altars and filled their essence to ancient tree. Zwisher and Xianming were observing them from the other side of the room with surprised faces. He didn't ask Zwisher and Xianming to leave when he transmitted the energy to the other three. He wanted the two of them to witness something magical in this world. Xianming was struck. He studied the four of them while a storm arose in his heart. This was the first time he saw the energy transmission. And the originator was Shuryen. He didn't know why Shuryen's body could endure such dominant energy fluctuations. This situation was beyond his knowledge, giving him a new cognition of power. Zwisher's small face was filled with surprise. Her line of sight fixed on Shuryen. She said excitedly, "Hey, old man, don't you think he's brilliant?" Xianming nodded bitterly, "Indeed." Zwisher smiled. After an unknown period, Leona and Ka Tua woke up with excited faces. They looked at each other and saw happiness in their faces. What a big harvest! Shuryen and Fei Lan were still meditating in silence. Their breaths were long and steady. Shuryen's body started to emit marvelous space energy. It seemed like his soul was trying to create some kind of magical resonance. This kind of energy fluctuation frequency was dense. It seemed like he wanted to build a space channel. Pallid air currents swirled around Fei Lan like spirit snakes. A discernible ethereal extent hovered behind her head. It made Fei Lan look like she was staying in a different space. Leona studied Fei Lan. After a while, her eyes glistened. "Precursor, she's about to break through, right?" Ka Tua also sensed something. He licked his lips, asking with excitement. Leona nodded. "Seems like she's breaking to the new realm. She's been at first sky of ethereal god realm for a long time. This time, she had beaten up a higher realm warrior, which advanced her power Upanishad. Well, as she has received enough energy, her breakthrough happened naturally and logically. It's so good." Ka Tua was sincerely happy. He respected Fei Lan a lot. If Fei Lan hadn't helped him a lot in Land of God Punishment, he would have been killed already. Although Fei Lan had taken care of him because of his inheritance, Ka Tua did get good things. She allowed him to survive before he was strong enough to take care of himself. He had the chance to meet up with Shuryen and reach his current realm. He appreciated Fei Lan a lot, and he had considered her as his precursor whom he serves and respects. In some aspect, Fei Lan's favor for him was much more significant than Shuryen's. Strange space energy fluctuated from Shuryen's soul altar. Gradually under the others' gazes, Shuryen disappeared from time to time as if his soul had escaped his body to some marvelous domain. Ka Tua and Leona were surprised. After a long time, Fei Lan woke up. She took a deep breath while her 10 fingers diffused the pallid erosive air currents, which were wiggling like snake tongues. Fei Lan was amazed looking at 10 currents of erosive air. She smiled, getting up and looking at Shuryen. "You, precursor, have you?" asked Ka Tua. Fei Lan nodded and admitted it. "Thanks to his grace, I'm at second sky of ethereal god realm. Seems like fighting and killing helps us understand our realms better." Ka Tua and Leona were baffled, but they were happy for her. Xianming observed quietly, listening to their conversation. He couldn't help but look at Shuryen, who was sitting still. Xianming had a lot of complicated feelings. His energy could help even ethereal god realm expert to break through. Xianming was astounded. Phew. Exhaling a murky blow of breath, Shuryen woke up, still sitting. With a calm visage, he slowly got up. His eyes lay on Fei Lan when he said to her, "Congratulations." Fei Lan didn't say anything. She just smiled and then unnaturally bent her body slightly to show her gratitude to Shuryen. Shuryen chuckled. He didn't say anything else and nodded to Zwisher and Xianming before leaving the training room. Soon, he arrived at the control center of the battleship. Fu Wei was sitting cross-legged. She had taken in pellets and digested them to give a tonic to her soul. Seeing him, Fu Wei opened her eyes, smiling. "You're here." "I'm here to help you a little bit," Shuryen said. He didn't wait for Fu Wei to respond. Just like an electric beam, he appeared right behind her. One hand of his was placed on her beautiful back. Vigorous life energy poured into Fu Wei's god body like a refreshing stream in a mountain. Fu Wei's beautiful eyes brightened. Her stiff body relaxed and she had a happy smile on her face. Her exhausted body recovered shortly after receiving Sheath's vitality. Fu Wei felt like she was soaking her body in a hot spring. Her sore muscles were relaxed. Her mind, chi, and soul were refreshed. She felt so comfortable that she couldn't describe when that flow of vitality had invigorated her. And Yun stood in a corner and watched. She used to want to stop Sheath. Seeing Fu Wei and her comfortable countenance, she exhaled in relief. Is it okay? Placing his hand on Fu Wei's voluptuous back, Sheath looked calm, asking. Fu Wei looked so relaxed as she enjoyed it a lot. With a weak smile, she told him a little more. Sheath was surprised, beaming a forced smile. Do you think the vitality I release is really cheap? While talking, he retrieved his hand. Looking at Fu Wei's white neck and her updo hairstyle, he said, the damages inside your body recovered. I can feel that. Fu Wei gritted her teeth. She got up reluctantly, giving a tender smile. I can see you have abundant life energy. The more I receive, the better I feel. Thus, I have to seize the chance, right? Sheath felt funny, shaking his head reluctantly. When will we encounter the other? Talking about that, Fu Wei's visage darkened. Soon. This time, we won't see only one battleship but instead, his entire mad shark fleet. We will face Du Lin. Sigh. It's hard to deal with Du Lin. He's such a headache. Du Lin? Who is he? The new generation's commander of the Croc family of the Ghostmark clan. He's at peak of ethereal god realm. I heard he has touched the threshold of incipient god realm. He's the captain of the Mad Shark fleet. He's careful, good at fighting and planning. Why can they find you guys precisely each time? As your battleship can cut off soul consciousness detecting, normal people can't find you. Why do they always know your location every time? Fu Wei forced a smile. She pondered and then explained. Du Lin was sent by Great Elder Lu. Great Elder knows our battleship well. Although people can't find us, it's simple to target and lock us down if they get the treasures from Great Elder. We basically can't be invisible under their sensing. And Yun sighed in her corner. Oh, that's it. Nodding, Sheath's face was stern. So we have to fight them? We don't have any chance to avoid this. Well, we used to have a chance to get rid of the besiege. Fu Wei glared at Sheath. But because you guys got out of the protective halo to kill those Ghostmark warriors, we had to pause for 15 minutes. We lost that precious chance. Of course, you don't need to blame yourself. I said it was a chance, so I'm not even sure if we could have escaped with the given 15 minutes. Seems like I have to take responsibility then. Sheath couldn't help but laugh. Of course, you have to take responsibility. Fu Wei nodded and smiled. You gave us the cannon. Our danger is related to the cannon. I've paid 100 million for the cannon. You should protect us and ensure our safety then. All right, I will try my best to protect you guys. Sheath smiled reluctantly. Dash. The big battleship halted. Fu Wei and Yun and Sheath stood on the deck of the ship, watching the area ahead of them. Their faces became stern. Black and blue shark battleships were approaching from the galaxy afar at an arrowhead formation to block them. A handsome Ghostmark man with his hands clasped behind his back was standing on the leading battleship. He had tender eyes and a natural smile on his face. That's Du Lin, hissed Yun. Fu Wei looked unnatural. She looked at the young man from a distance and sighed. Those battleships didn't stop. The Ghostmark captain named Du Lin took a deep breath and then pitched his voice. Miss Fu Wei, I didn't want to meet you in such situation. Allow me to apologize in advance. I don't want to do this. I hope you understand. I don't want to see you either. Fu Wei walked forward reluctantly. Standing several thousand meters away from Du Lin, she said gently, Can you retreat, please? I can. Du Lin nodded resolutely and then said, Give me the cannon. I will leave immediately. For you, I can even violate the order. I just need the cannon. I won't kill any of you. Can I keep the cannon and leave? Smiled Fu Wei. No, you can't. I agreed with him. I can't do that. Du Lin bent his body to express his apology. He smiled reluctantly and said, I can do my best to protect you. Believe me, as long as you give me the cannon, I'm sure you will all be safe and sound. Young master, hissed one of his subordinates. Du Lin waved his hand, shouting impatiently, Don't speak nonsense. If Miss Fu Wei agrees with me, I'm willing to violate his order for her. The other didn't dare to say more. I can't give you the cannon, Fu Wei said begrudgingly. Du Lin wasn't startled. He still smiled tenderly. I know I'm making it difficult. Yeah, don't worry. I will show mercy. I won't let anything bad happen to you. He turned his head, looking at the mad shark fleet behind, and gave his order. Go. Pay attention. Anyone who attacks Miss Fu Wei will lose their life. The Ghost Mark warriors then urged their battleships, moving like a frenzy of sharks chasing after their prey. Their auras and momentum were so intimidating. Fu Wei sighed weakly and said, Return to the control center. Prepare to struggle through a furious battle. Chapter 1004, Giving Energy. Chapter 1004, Giving Energy, _ Ferocious black and blue mad shark battleships moved like cruel big fish with divine crystals as their source of energy. They quickly approached. Du Lin stood firm like a rock on the deck of a battleship, clasping his hands behind his back. He looked calm with a warm smile. Apparently, he wouldn't join this battle immediately. The mad shark fleet under his command was moving fast forward. They diverged, creating a circle to surround the massive battleship and blocking any possible exit. Fu Wei was stern while she sat in the control center. Each wisp of her soul consciousness had created a subtle connection with each mark on the walls. The magnificent halo expanded and covered the entire battleship. Crack! 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 Sharp gears emerged from two sides of the battleship. With cold light, they started to roll rapidly and created sharp and shiny spikes. The energy of countless divine crystals was released. At this moment, Fu Wei had connected all the barriers of the battleship. With her soul consciousness, she controlled her ship and made it like a sharp blade comes out of its sheath or like a beast opening its bloody mouth. The energy fluctuation from the battleship was now so sharp. Boom! Light columns shot out from different corners of the battleship like electric dragons. They crazily attacked everywhere. This earth-shaking commotion rampaged the galaxy like an exploding life star or a meteor shower. The shockwave this attack created could smash everything. Some black and blue shark battleships approaching first got hit as they weren't cautious. The light columns pierced through the shark battleships, killing dozens of Ghost Mark warriors. Their broken bodies were blown away. Their blood dyed the area red. Fu Wei paled. She hurried to take some pellets. Her soul consciousness gathered energy and controlled the attacking formations of the battleship. The dim-lit universe now had pieces of broken bodies floating. Those bodies weren't intact. They were just like the pulp of meat floating in the void. Warriors of the pierced battleships changed their countenances, flying away from their wrecked battleships. They released powers Upanishads and god domains. Bunches of light beams shot out as thick as clouds of locusts bombarding Fu Wei's battleship. The halo of the battleship sparked dazzlingly and beautifully. However, it was perilous and it scared people. The massive battleship suddenly trembled under the furious attacks. The sharp gears on the sides revolved faster. The massive battleship was like a spear that could pierce through everything, moving directly forward. Fragments of gigantic battleships turned into powder and vanished upon impact with the sharp gears on Fu Wei's battleship. Any warrior who came near the battleship was killed by experts of potion and tool pavilion hiding inside the protective halo. The battle was extremely fierce right at the beginning. Du Lin changed his countenance. Looking at the black and blue shark battleships shattering and his subordinates being killed, his warm smile disappeared. Shuryen, Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua stood on the deck mingling with the other warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Looking at the mad shark battleships attacking them, their visages were extremely stern. Shuryen knew that the light curtain above their head couldn't resist for a long time. That light curtain was created from many barriers and restrictions, which were linked with Fu Wei's soul. She had controlled them right from the beginning. To maintain that protective halo, Fu Wei had to use her soul energy continually, which would weaken her fast. Fu Wei also controlled the crystal artilleries at each salvo. As she had to defend and attack at the same time, Fu Wei had to consume a significant amount of energy each second. Once Fu Wei couldn't endure it anymore, the halo would disappear and this battleship would have to stop its attack. The Ghost Mark warriors would get on board. After that, the most brutal combat would start. Shi Yan didn't know how long Fu Wei could endure this. On the ship, Shi Yan was strangely cold and calm. His soul altar slowly spun. His energy extended, gathering corpses and god bodies of the dead Ghost Mark warriors above the light curtain. After those warriors died, their energy didn't disperse immediately. Shi Yan attracted this kind of energy and took it into his body through his acupuncture points. 720 acupuncture points started to refine madly. Each of his acupuncture points was an immense world with countless vortexes that drew and refined essence chi of dead warriors. The vortexes revolved, filtered, refined, and released pure energy for Shi Yan to absorb. Inside the control center, Fu Wei was pale. Her sea of consciousness seethed like a thunderstorm. Her soul energy was like countless tentacles that connected the marks of the formations and restrictions in this control center. Both defending and attacking this massive battleship required the soul energy to control it. Her god power was getting consumed rapidly. She had controlled this battleship alone and knew everything to the details. She could feel her mind and energy drain quickly. This kind of consumption happened so fast that no pellet could help her recover shortly. She knew that she must be persistent. Once she couldn't control it anymore, the battleship would be defenseless. Once it happened, she would have no power to deal with Du Lin. She couldn't keep the cannon and she would become Du Lin's property, a toy of his. Fu Wei gritted her teeth, trying to focus. Her soul consciousness connected to every detail of the ship. She still controlled it. The light curtain covering the ship thinned because of the bombarding from different forces. It would be torn in any minute. Crystal artilleries shot the light columns that looked like spikes of a hedgehog. This kind of attack was a significant threat to Ghost Mark warriors surrounding the ship. After a salvo, some warriors of the Ghost Mark clan were killed. The gears on both sides of the gigantic battleship rolled, crushing the mad shark battleships impacted with them. They crushed the shark battleships into pieces while Fu Wei's battleship was still flying fast forward. It broke any warrior and anything in its way, grinding them into powder. No Ghost Mark warrior could stop it. Fu Wei was so tired. She had sweat all over their body. Her bangs in front of her forehead were damp. Shi Yan stood still on the deck of the massive battleship. He squinted, looking at the bodies hovering above the light curtain. His eyes had the light like ghostly flames. Fei Lan and the other two surrounded him. They were stern, watching him and waiting for his direction. Since Shi Yan didn't nod to order them to attack, Fei Lan's team stood still. No matter how hard Yun, Feng'an, and Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards resisted the enemies, Shi Yan's team just stood and watched them coldly. You guys, go help them. Remember that before the light curtain breaks, you can't fly out of the battleship. After a long time, Shi Yan suddenly ordered Fei Lan and the other two. Then, he walked alone to the control center of the battleship. You can't get in. One of Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards stopped him in the passage leading to control room. At the critical moment, Fu Wei was the soul and the heart of this gigantic battleship. She shouldn't be disturbed. Compared to the breaking the bottleneck in cultivation, her situation now was much more dangerous. If someone attacked her, she couldn't do anything to defend herself. If Shi Yan had a bad intention and attacked Fu Wei while she was concentrating on controlling the battleship, Fu Wei would be killed easily. I can help her. Stopping by the control center, Shi Yan spoke to Yun honestly. And Yun had a struggle in her mind. At the moment when their situation became so perilous, she made a right decision. Let him in. She waved her hand at the guard. Some Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards who protected the control center listened to Yun. They stooped and left. Pay attention to this place. Yun talked to Feng'an and then walked to the control center. I'm going with you. After you. Shi Yan knew her worry. He nodded and stepped aside to give her way, asking her to go first. and Yun stormed into the control center, landing next to Fu Wei. She took a deep breath and spoke to Fu Wei. Sheath said he came to help you. Fu Wei was sweating a lot. Her long blue dress was damp on her body, revealing her voluptuous features. She was controlling the formations with closed eyes. Listening to Yun, she opened her eyes, her face ashen. He came to help me. Yun nodded. Let him in, said Fu Wei. Sheath appeared like a dark shadow. He checked Fu Wei's situation. You should focus on controlling the battleship. I'm here to help. He extended his left hand and placed it on Fu Wei's damp back. Beams of mysterious energy seeped out from his finger and entered Fu Wei's god body like refreshing streams. A cool feeling flooded her body. Her exhausted essence chi ancient tree was refilled. Her tired spirit revived as if she had taken a panacea. This fantastic feeling was like soaking the body in ice water in the middle of a hot summer day. Fu Wei's heart had a vibe. She gave a sincere smile. She gritted her teeth and couldn't help but let out a moan of pleasure. Sheath was bewildered, looking at Fu Wei enjoying it. He shook his head, chuckled, and then advised her. Don't get distracted. You must focus. Everything on this battleship depends on your control. Do not get distracted. Got it? Fu Wei answered gently. She thinned her lips, beaming a smile. Her pale cheeks recovered its colors. Her god body felt like a dry well that was receiving water. The flames of her life burst up. Fu Wei's energy refilled. The mysterious energy flowed through Sheath's fingers to her body. As he was touching her back, he could see every ability of Fu Wei's god body. He could clearly see her bones, blood, and flesh. Everything was reflected in his heart. Sensing quietly, Sheath suddenly understood something. Although it was the same kind of energy transmission, Fei Lan, Ka Tua, and Leona could absorb every bit of energy that Sheath gave them through the mark on their foreheads. At the same time, they could use this energy to refine their bodies and their soul altars. To Fu Wei, it was different. Half of the energy Sheath had sent to her body was wasted, and his energy couldn't help Fu Wei strengthen herself. It could only help her restore and nurture her body to generate energy again. He understood that the energy he had given her could be effective only when she needed energy. When Fu Wei was at her peak condition, his energy given to her couldn't do anything. It couldn't be converted to her energy to increase her realm and powers. Anyway, it was not from the same school or source. Sheath sighed inwardly. Chapter 1005, The Thunder God Spear. Chapter 1005, The Thunder God Spear, _ Boom. The intensive light column that was as beautiful as a gemstone shot out from the crystal artilleries. After a salvo, they crushed a blue shark battleship into small pieces. Fragments of the damaged battleships were burned. Shooting flames fell massively. The scorching flames were dazzling as the most brilliant fireworks that were too mesmerizing to the soul. This was the 6th Mad Shark battleship that they destroyed. Hundreds of Ghostmark clansmen were killed. Their bodies were gone and their soul altars were broken. Inside the control center, Fu Wei was calm. Her face glowed in health. Her tiredness was swept away. Sheath stood quietly behind her like the strongest city wall. One hand of his was placed on her back that helped him sense the energy surging in her blood vessels. Fu Wei beamed a relaxed smile. The hand on her back continually sent some kind of mysterious energy into her body. It was like a magical stream that could strengthen her blood, vessels, and bones. It had refilled her consumed essence chi and allowed her to maintain her full energy condition. She had a feeling that if that hand didn't leave, she would never be defeated as she could maintain her peak condition forever. She would never feel tired again. It has been so many years since Fu Wei had felt this kind of care and protection. She felt that the hand was the most important thing in her life. As long as she had it on her back, she was never going to be defeated. And Yun had a joy that she couldn't hide. She studied the young man, her eyes happy and her face joyfully bright. The Mad Shark fleet was the most potent force of the Ghostmark clan. Du Lin, their captain, was very famous in Agate Star area. He was the young and fabulous expert whom the entire Croc family entrusted its future. At the same time, he was favored and accepted by the Great Elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Du Lin had almost collected all the supports and favors to him. He was the chosen son of heaven and the most prominent star in Agate Star area. And Yun would never expect this extremely tough battle to be like this, and Fu Wei was still full of energy until this moment. That year when they built this battleship, and Yun had also participated in the construction. She knew its structure and fabricating method clearly. Fu Wei was the soul of this battleship. Each barrier, formation, and restriction was connected to Fu Wei's soul. She was the operator for every defending and attacking operation. The bottom of this gigantic battleship had hundreds of millions of divine crystals, which were its source of energy. As long as Fu Wei didn't consume all of her energy and she maintained her sound mind, she could use the energy of those divine crystals continually to have the protective halo and the terrifying attacks last. It required Fu Wei's energy and the divine crystals at the bottom of the battleships to endure and resist the enemy. If Fu Wei could stay in her peak condition with the abundant amount of divine crystals, they could always maintain the utmost defense and attack. Talking about wealth, none of the forces in Agate Star area could compare to Potion and Tool Pavilion. Yan's appearance was the most valuable variable and the biggest chance for them. Until this moment, Yun was still panic-stricken. She didn't know what method Yan had used to refill Fu Wei's energy. However, she believed that if Yan could help Fu Wei remain at her peak condition, the defensive and attacking operations of this battleship wouldn't be paused, and it would be in the best condition until the end. Fu Wei glowed as she was in a good condition. Her breathing was steady and her blue eyes were bright and happy. Yan stood still like a mountain. Energy still flowed from him into Fu Wei's body. His flow of energy then diverged into smaller streams, which were sent to every corner of Fu Wei's body. With this support, she would never be exhausted. Looking at the cold young man and Fu Wei relaxing, and Yun couldn't hold her thoughts. If these two cooperated, would everything be smooth and excellent? Standing on the only black shark battleship that hadn't engaged in the battle, Du Lin wasn't smiling anymore. He knitted his eyebrows tightly, his eyes getting colder. Standing behind him were 3 Ghostmark experts at second sky of ethereal god realm. They kneeled down with their head held stubbornly high. They bit their lips until bleeding. They were anxious and impatient. The Croc family had built this mad shark fleet to support Du Lin. To give Du Lin the strongest fleet of the Ghostmark clan, the Croc had used half of the property of the entire family. The Mad Shark fleet shouldered the critical mission of bringing Du Lin to the chief position in the future. He was the hope of the Crocs. Today, 6 of them were smashed and hundreds of the elite warriors of the family had fallen into the Sea of Stars. They would never be able to gather their souls and bodies once again. All of these were because of Du Lin's rash operation. Young Master, a senile Ghostmark expert, gritted his teeth, a trickle of blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. He said with deep grief, "Our fellows are being killed. They are all your entourage. Young Master, do you want to see more of them die? Young Master, they are the foundation of the Croc family. They are your most loyal soldiers. If you insist on continuing, I will kill myself right here." Another Ghostmark warrior shouted, his face resolute and stubborn. While he was talking, a fiery light ball emerged on his palm. He struck it to his forehead. Du Lin was frightened. He stopped the old man immediately. Thunderbolts wound around that man's arms, restraining his body. The Ghostmark old man who was about to commit suicide couldn't press his hand on his head, halting. His eyes were filled with grief as he looked at Du Lin deep in his eyes. "Young Master, it is worth sacrificing many men to win over that woman's heart." His heart was bleeding. Du Lin pondered for a while. He sighed reluctantly. "I understand." The 3 kneeling Ghostmark experts' eyes brightened when Du Lin changed his attitude. They now had hope, talking malignantly, "We beg you to take action." Du Lin turned his head, looking at the gigantic battleship moving away. As he looked at the watery, wave-like protection halo, felt the power of the combination of countless barriers and restrictions, and saw many men of his elite force being killed, Du Lin's indecisive eyes became resolute. He knew once he attacked them that he would never have the chance to have Fu Wei's heart. He came all the way here this time with the hope that he could persuade Fu Wei. He hoped he didn't need to go through the last step to win her heart and the cannon. But he was wrong. He didn't expect that Fu Wei could resist his attacks up until this moment. She seemed to not be tired at all. It was a strange situation. Du Lin was skeptical, but he couldn't explain why. Now, he had to do what he didn't want to do the most. When he took action, he and Fu Wei wouldn't have a way to return. He would never have Fu Wei's heart. At most, he could only have her body. He would become a bastard. Du Lin's disposition was self-important. After Fu Wei had rejected him that year, he had sworn he would make Fu Wei moved one day. He must make Fu Wei like him with all her heart. She would become his wife and help him expand his territory, stepping on the peak of glory in Agate Star area. However, he finally knew today that his pledge would never be fulfilled. He flew out of the Black Shark battleship, hovering in the immense void and facing Potion and Tool Pavilion's massive, incoming battleship. Although he looked calm, his eyes showed his reluctant and lonely feelings. Thousands of Ghostmark warriors halted no matter where they were. They focused, looking at him and waiting for something. Some senile Ghostmark experts clenched their fists as they became excited. Their eyes yearned for a victory. A shining spear made of lightning emerged from Du Lin's sleeve. It glowed in the silver hue of divine light. His ethereal extent was a world of blinding thunderbolts. It revealed above his head like a rising curtain. Tens of thousands of lightning strikes moved inside that marvelous world. The world seemed to collapse as lightning flashed continually like the gossamer, striking here and there. That shining silver spear was as long as an arm. It had the natural pattern of lightning with the incredible abilities of thunderbolts. The spear flew out inaudibly, darting towards Potion and Tool Pavilion's battleship like a silky ribbon. Tens of thousands of lightning strikes in ethereal extent above Du Lin's head acted as if they were drawn away from his ethereal extent, pouring rapidly into the spear. In just a blink, the silver spear had absorbed thousands of lightning strikes. It moved like a meteor piercing through the universe, aimed at the light curtain protecting Potion and Tool Pavilion's battleship. PFFF. The defensive halo created by countless barriers and restrictions was torn. The light curtain covering the battleship was pierced through and created a giant hole. Then, it was ripped apart at a speed that a naked eye could see. The divine lightning was dazzling as it expanded over the light curtain and tore it apart. Under that light curtain, warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion were struck by lightning. Their god bodies were charred. Weak warriors were killed at their spots, while stronger ones had their souls damaged significantly. The Thunder Divine Spear was the top treasure of the Ghostmark clan. It was an original incipient grade weapon. Du Lin, the chosen son of heaven from the Crocs, was the current owner of this divine weapon. Du Lin's main power was lightning. He could promote the power of the Thunder God's Spear by giving it billions of his lightning strikes. It could have the god power to destroy the world. PFFF. Fu Wei spat out blood from her succulent red lips. Her face was pale. Her soft body was filled with lightning. Her energy accumulated in the body was smashed. She was trying to resist the lightning invading her body with great pain. As she had the connection with barriers, marks, restrictions, and formations of this battleship, she also had to bear the power of the lightning strikes. She was hurt severely after this attack when the light curtain got torn. Boom! Azure thunderbolts with deterrent power moved through Yan's hand and to his body. His hand was still placed on Fu Wei's back. The lightning strikes were like arrows shot out of a strong bow. They attacked his body in various parts, giving him a horrible pain to his muscles and vessels. His arm almost exploded. As it was very sore and numb, he had to move his hand away from Fu Wei's back. Level 1 Original Incipient Grade Weapon. It's the Thunder God Spear. Du Lin is using the Thunder God Spear. In Yun burst out angrily, thundering. He dares to use the Thunder God Spear. He wants to kill us. Zhuo Lu is crazy. After killing another elder, isn't he afraid of the other elder's punishment? When that level 1 original incipient grade weapon is activated, it will disorder the lightning and thunder of the surrounding area. When those lightning strikes shoot fast, he won't be able to control them. They would kill a lot of creatures around. They could even crush a life star. Yan was frightened. Chapter 1006, Who Can Endure a Battle? Chapter 1006, Who Can Endure a Battle, _ As the Thunder God's spear had torn the protective light curtain in just one strike, dozens of Potion and Tool Pavilion's warriors turned into charcoal. A larger number continued to try resisting the erosive effect of lightning in their bodies. Dulin descended on the deck of the battleship, clutching a silver spear. Lightning bolts wound around that spear like tongues of venomous snakes. Although its murderous aura was invisible, no one dared to confront this spear. The tremendous weapon of original incipient grade. Although this agate star area was vast, the number of original incipient grade weapons could be counted with a person's fingers. Each of them was well known, and their masters were a small group of influential people who topped the world. Dulin grasped the electric spear as if he was holding the entire world. His body expressed some kind of arrogance and confidence, giving a massive pressure that suffocated Potion and Tool Pavilion's warriors. The Ghostmark clansmen didn't cheer when they saw Dulin tear through the protective halo of the battleship with one strike, as they thought that it was inevitable. They knew Dulin's competence. They knew that he had the capacity to do that. Thus, the Ghostmark warriors were calm, approaching and surrounding warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion on the massive battleship from every direction. Without the protective halo, they were able to jump onto the massive battleship whenever they wanted. Due to the close distance, the crystal artilleries weren't a threat to them anymore. At this moment, in the eyes of the Ghostmark warriors, they knew that the result of this battle was determined. They knew when Dulin became severe and put his affection for Fu Wei aside, the girl wouldn't have a chance. On Fu Wei's battleship, Foeman of Potion and Tool Pavilion was pale, gritting his teeth while gazing at Dulin. However, he didn't dare to come over and challenge the young man. He could only watch the guards of his side trying to resist the lightning strikes. Foeman felt painfully reluctant. Dulin was at third sky of ethereal god realm, and he had put one step through the threshold to incipient god realm. With the Thunder God's spear, the divine weapon, and an original incipient grade treasure in his hand, who can endure a battle with him on this battleship? Foeman's face was so solemn. Dulin stood alone in the crowd of Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards. He hadn't done anything rashly and just waited in silence. His eyes laid on the control center of this big battleship. He's waiting for someone. He's waiting for that girl to give him the cannon. As he stood still, none of the Ghostmark warriors dared to take action. Also, no guard of Potion and Tool Pavilion had the guts to provoke opponents. The battleship was now so quiet that they would even hear the sound of a falling needle. Staying inside the control center, and Yun paled, her eyes panic-stricken. A storm arose in her heart. She suddenly recognized that she was wrong. Totally wrong. She had underrated Dulin, and she had underestimated Zhuo Lu's determination to get the cannon. Although Potion and Tool Pavilion had some unceasing competition, they had all happened in the dark. They weren't going to expose anything and make it accelerate to the extreme point they had to kill one elder. One elder's death would enrage all the other elders of Potion and Tool Pavilion, which led to the rage of the Pavilion Master. And Yun had assumed that the Great Elder wanted only the cannon and that he wouldn't hurt Fu Wei. The appearance of Dulin made Yun instinctively make the wrong assumption she had made. Because she knew Dulin loved Fu Wei better than anyone else. As Zhuo Lu had sent Dulin here, and Yun thought he didn't want to push this mess to the point he couldn't clean it later. Thus, he didn't send a more malignant subordinate. However, she was wrong. She had wronged Zhuo Lu's crazy desire of the cannon and Zhuo Lu's understanding of Dulin. It turned out that in a critical moment, Dulin could be a savage. And Yun sighed and couldn't help but look at Fu Wei with blood on her face. Her complicated look switched to the man who stood firm like a rock. She felt utterly hopeless. Unfortunately, the big difference between their realms couldn't be made up simply. He hasn't reached a profound realm yet. Fu Wei sat quietly for a moment. She wiped out the blood trickles on the corners of her mouth. She stood up, said nothing, and walked straight outside. Looking at Dulin standing in between Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards, she sighed weakly, her face bitter. Dulin seemed emotional. He clenched his fingers around the spear, sighing. I didn't want everything to turn out like this. Fu Wei nodded and her eyes glistened beautifully. As we're in this situation, we can only meet in a death or a life combat. I die and you take the cannon. Or I defeat you and you leave. You're not my opponent. Du Lin shivered unnaturally, his visage distressed. I really don't want to attack you. As long as you hand me the cannon, I'll leave immediately. I won't trouble you anymore. No, Fu Wei sighed inwardly. Looking at Du Lin, she whispered, you have your principles and I have my stubbornness. I won't step back. While talking, an emerald ring on Fu Wei's white wrist glowed in the blue light. It rippled, revealing beautiful scenery of mountains and rivers like a monochronic picture. The magical blue energy condensed, exposing that magnificent world little by little. Ice mountains emerged and shrank right into Fu Wei's palm. The mountain range fabricated by the icy beams created a bitter cold world where glaciers flowed and congregated. Eventually, it created a small ice mountain. The ice mountain had many magical and mysterious symbols. They looked like some heavenly body had drawn them. Waves of cold air expanded, drowning the real world in its coldness. Du Lin was stern, looking at the world of the glacier in Fu Wei's hand. He watched the ice mountain with solemn eyes. It was unknown when Shi Yan and In Yun had walked out of the control center. They now all gazed at the glacier in her hand. In Yun had a reluctant pain showing in her face. Shi Yan was bewildered. He turned to ask In Yun, is that glacier an original incipient grade weapon? Fu Wei was at second of ethereal god realm and she cultivated fire power Upanishad. It was common to blacksmiths and alchemists. However, Shi Yan didn't know Fu Wei had cultivated ice power Upanishad as her minor power besides the fire power Upanishad. Ice and fire usually couldn't blend together. Fu Wei's decision had surprised Shi Yan. When Fu Wei at second sky of ethereal god realm had been hurt by Du Lin's previous attack, Shi Yan didn't have enough time and energy to help her recover. Du Lin was at peak of ethereal god realm, and he also had a divine weapon of original incipient grade. Thunder God Spear was really famous in Agate Star area. It was the top weapon of the Ghostmark clan, which had drunk a lot of blood. It had shouldered the glory of the Ghostmark clan for tens of thousands of years. In Yun nodded gently. The mysterious heavenly glacier was refined by the second pavilion master. It has thousands of glaciers in the cold area of the North Pole as the foundation together with several hundred icy materials. To fabricate the mysterious heavenly glacier, the second pavilion master had fallen into bedevilment. Eventually, his soul vanished when he finished creating the mysterious heavenly glacier. Shi Yan frowned and didn't reply here. His face was getting more serious. Your main power is fire and the ice power's just a minor power Upanishad. Ice and fire can't blend together. At the same time, the mysterious heavenly glacier can't control my Thunder God Spear. Du Lin's face was reluctantly bitter. We shouldn't fight anymore. Give me the cannon and we will end all of this. Okay. Fu Wei's furrowed her bold brows, gently shaking her head. Du Lin's face stiffened. He stood there bewilderedly. Warriors of the Ghostmark clan gathered in four corners of this massive battleship. Before Du Lin ordered, no one dared to reach the deck. Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards, including Feng'an and Yun, stood there with cold faces. However, they just looked at Du Lin and intervened with nothing. The original incipient grade weapons were really intimidating. Once they were used, they could draw the catastrophe to the entire star area. Du Lin and Fu Wei were holding their divine weapons. At this moment, no one could interfere with their combat. Don't destroy my battleship. We should move to another place. Fu Wei took a deep breath. She smiled at Du Lin tenderly and flew out, soaring into the sea of stars. Members of the Ghostmark clan leaned and moved out of her way, letting her fly through their crowd at ease. Du Lin nodded quietly. He didn't say more and followed her. They floated in the vast galaxy. He shouted at his forces, scatter. Without my order, don't make a move. The Ghostmark warrior respectfully left, scattering away from that battleship. Guards of the Potion and Tool Pavilion exhaled in relief. However, they recalled something, so they became sterner. Could she defeat Du Lin? Shi Yan frowned, looking at In Yun. She cultivates fire power Upanishad and her realm is lower than his. Even if she gets a divine weapon, her opponent has won. What do you think about this battle? In Yoon side, talking. Elders of Potion and Tool Pavilion have invested their efforts only in refining pellets and forging treasures. Compared to the real fighters, their experience and timing in fighting are so bad. Shi suddenly understood. If she failed, what would happen? Pausing for a while, he continued. We can't keep the cannon. And Yoon pondered, choosing her words. If young elder can give it up resolutely, maybe she'll be all right. Although she looks tender, she's really stubborn. I'm afraid she, Shi face darkened. Billions of lightning strikes weaved in the void like a massive spider web expanding everywhere in the sea of stars. Dulin held the spear in his hand, standing in the center of the lightning web. He was accumulating energy. Fu Wei was wearing a long blue dress, her palm holding the small glacier. Along with her realm and her increasing energy, the glacier was enlarging, releasing the freezing cold air to everywhere. This woman who used to be as tender as water now had an icy cold aura. SSSS. SSSS. Lightning strikes wiggled, congregating into the thunder god's spear. The electric silver spear of an arm size flashed with exquisite and elaborate drawings and patterns. Gradually, it had the power to release scorching lightning strikes. Billions of lightning strikes in the world seemed to have the same home. They flooded towards the electric spear rapidly. The blinding electric lights shot out, mingling with each other. They created a lightning web, covering Fu Wei entirely. The thunder god spear became a bunch of lightning strikes sweeping through the galaxy. It aimed at Fu Wei with formidable momentum. The extremely cold glacier where Fu Wei was sitting released the thick cold mist, which dyed the entire world with white snow. Snowflakes and frost fell on the crystal glacier. All of them made the most beautiful, perfect piece of art. They stood in the way of the spear. Crack! Crack! The mysterious heavenly glacier was hit, sending pieces of ice everywhere. The glacier rumbled. Fu Wei paled. Her body shivered as the glacier shook. Dulin sighed deeply. His face looked so begrudging. However, the thunder god's spear he sent away didn't cease. It reloaded the power of billions of lightning strikes, preparing for a new thrusting attack. Chapter 1007. The Giant Blood Shield. Chapter 1007. The Giant Blood Shield, _. Without beautiful strikes or changes of power Upanishad, the lightning spear continued to thrust at the crystal glacier. Pieces of ice exploded, shooting away from the glacier and moving to unknown places. Thunderbolts flashed as if the lightning power Upanishad was urged to the acme. The power of thunderbolts could even discolor the whole universe. It illuminated the dark area while divine lights flashed and shot far away. It was unknown how many life stars those thunderbolts would attack. When the original incipient-grade weapons released the power, it could trigger some kind of disorderly power Upanishad that could lead to a catastrophe. This was similar to when incipient God Realm experts fought each other. Supernatural experts at incipient God Realm could destroy an entire life star if they fought to the death. Rumors said that when the tremendous incipient God Realm experts battled so fiercely that one of them died, they could crush many life stars with them. Dulin and Fu Wei hadn't reached incipient God Realm, but if they could urge the power of their original incipient-grade weapons to the utmost, their lethality could even surge towards outer space. It was enough to compare slightly to the incipient God Realm experts. Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards on the battleship and the Ghostmark clansmen kept silent, looking at their battle in a far distance. No one was in the mood to talk. Each of them could see that Fu Wei couldn't resist anymore. As the Thunder God's spear kept drilling and thrusting, the glacier exploded bit by bit. The bitter cold aura was decreasing. Fu Wei looked as pale as a sheet of white paper. She was tired, indeed. Dulin had also consumed energy, but he was still full. His energy was as abundant as a rising tide. At this moment, he was still intimidating. The energy accumulations of a peak of Ethereal God Realm Warrior and a second sky of Ethereal God Realm Warrior were very different. At the same time, Fu Wei wasn't a fighter who was good at fighting. Her lifetime effort had been invested in refining things. In bloody battles, her performance wasn't really excellent. Du Lin was different from her. Since he was born in the Croc family, he had to take the mission of strengthening his family. He had to pursue absolute power for the rest of his life. Du Lin had experienced bloody battles and killed many people. To this kind of bloody fighting, Du Lin got used to it. How to seize the chance to attack, how to utilize his powers and advantages the most. He understood all of these much better than Fu Wei. Add the gap between their realms and the result of this battle was determined even before it started. Members of the Ghostmark clan had a joy that they couldn't hide on their faces. Du Lin had proven his ability to sweep off all the obstacles one more time. They believed he could bring the Croc family to the peak of glory. Looking at Du Lin at this moment, his fellows felt excited as they knew that the distance between Du Lin and the chief of Ghostmark clan position wasn't far away. They believed that if Du Lin could help Zuolu to get the cannon, he would receive generous support from Zuolu. With the favor of Potion and Tool Pavilion's Great Elder and Du Lin's competence, the Mad Shark Fleet would become the strongest force in the Agate Star area. They could help the Croc family move further. Quite the contrary, Feng'an and Yun and the other guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion had put on stern faces. They felt suffocated as if they had a big stone pressing on their chests. If Fu Wei is defeated, what will happen to you guys? On a corner of the battleship, Shi contemplated for a while, speaking all of a sudden. In this quiet ambience, his voice was a bit unpleasant. Many Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards looked at him with unknown intentions in their eyes. And Yun's brows slammed together as she looked at Shi and the warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion. She spoke earnestly, if Young Elder is defeated but remains relatively unharmed, nothing bad will happen to us, I suppose. But if Young Elder forces herself to the point that she perishes, I think Du Lin will massacre all of us in his rage. She beamed a forced smile, sighing. If Young Elder is killed, we don't have the face to live anymore as servants. Shi frowned. The warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion had a dark and gloomy face as if their parents had just passed away. They seemed to see the end of their lives. Senior, what about us? Ka Tua grinned oddly. Would we encounter danger too? You guys insisted on staying. In Yun sighed, looking at Shi. If Young Elder dies, I'm afraid you guys can't escape death. After she dies, we can't do anything. Du Lin would never let any witnesses leave alive. Senior. Ka Tuo's face darkened. Shi nodded quietly. Looking at the immense galaxy out there, he had a lot of thoughts in his mind. At the moment Shi decided to stay, he had resonated his soul with the space node. He believed when he used his space power that he could bring Ka Tua, Leona, Fei Lan, Xian Ming, and Zhou Shi away. They could escape this deadly battle in just a blink. As he had this confidence, he decided to let Zhou Shi and Xian Ming stay. In other words, Du Lin couldn't stop him if he wanted to run. However, he didn't want to run away. He didn't want to see Fu Wei die. He had a good impression of this woman, especially after he heard her secrets. He had feelings for her. He knew that she was also a miserable girl. As thoughts flashed in his mind, he had a decision. Put off your guard and hand the cannon to me. Otherwise, your mysterious heavenly glacier will be smashed. It won't be easy to fix. You know that. Floating in the sea of stars, Du Lin had lightning strikes linger on his entire body. He reluctantly gave her advice. The Thunder God's spear halted 1,000 meters in front of the glacier. Lightning strikes flashed on the spear as if it could gather more lightning strikes of this world altogether. Such an earth-shattering threat made everybody feel powerless. Du Lin knew Fu Wei wasn't in a good condition. Although the mysterious heavenly glacier was a secret treasure at original incipient grade, its quality and level couldn't compare to the spear he had. Fu Wei's realm was lower than his, and she had consumed a lot of energy to operate the battleship. Honestly, Fu Wei's current endurance was already over his estimation. However, seeing Fu Wei's aura ceasing and her tired eyes, Du Lin knew Fu Wei's energy was now chaotic. She couldn't endure it any longer. If Fu Wei continued this way, her life would be threatened and her foundation would be damaged. Once its owner was hurt, how can the mysterious heavenly glacier resist the fierce attack from the Thunder God's spear? No! Fu Wei shook her head resolutely, her face calm and faint. Du Lin frowned. He was finally enraged. You want to court death? Although the cannon is precious, you can't keep it. Do you still want to use your own life to protect it? You're just stubborn. Useless stubbornness is no different from stupidity. Fu Wei said nothing. She continued to gather energy. The mysterious heavenly glacier continued to emit the cold air, generating new ice mountains. She acted to show her attitude. Du Lin was infuriated. His tender face had become cold eventually. Fu Wei's attitude had enraged him. He didn't want to kill her. But now, he didn't want to advise her in pain either. A divine spear with thunderbolts winding around moved like a lightning strike sweeping across the world. It brought together the brutal power of flashes and maliciously drilled into the mysterious heavenly glacier operated by its exhausted master. The Ghost Mark warriors and the guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion were shocked. They didn't even blink while watching this strike of Thunder Divine Spear. They understood that this strike would announce Fu Wei's sentence. It would put an end to this battle. Was it going to end? And Yun was filled with despair. She hopelessly looked at the battle afar, sighing begrudgingly. It should be like that. Some old warriors of the Ghostmark clan were so excited. They clenched their fists with yearning eyes. They were all waiting for this thunderbolt attack to complete the ending they had known beforehand. Boom! Countless divine lightning strikes blended with blood light. Lightning strikes sparked beautifully at the tip of the spear while the blood light became more visible. People's pupils shrank. They couldn't help but gawk, dropping their jaws. Divine light sparkled in their eyes, all focused on one thing. It was a scarlet shield. It stood in front of the mysterious heavenly glacier, shielding the lethal attack of the Thunder God's spear. At first, the shield was just the size of a palm. Under people's gaze, it was enlarging rapidly. Corpses and blood of several hundred dead warriors of the Ghostmark clan flew towards the shield like a bloody shower. The shield took in blood and enlarged fast. As blood was flooding the shield, it became a gigantic scarlet shield. It looked even more imposing than the several thousand-meter mysterious heavenly glacier. It had shielded the entire mysterious heavenly glacier, leaving the Thunder God speak no leak to attack. A flow of bloodthirsty, brutal aura slowly expanded on that scarlet shield. It was like an evil creature had just descended to this world. All the warriors felt their soul altars being affected. It felt like some bloody, malicious ghost had haunted their souls, making them irritatedly restless. As blood seeped into the shield, the magical blood mark on it bloomed like a flower. It was indeed cruelly beautiful that touched people's heart and made them shiver at the same time. Inside the Sea of Stars, many Ghostmark warriors were petrified. They couldn't help but rub their eyes as they thought that they were dizzy. Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards were bewildered as if they were sinking in the deepest and darkest dream. This feeling was so unreal. No one knows where this blood shield came from. No one knew why it happened to Bok Du Lin's deadly attack at the critical moment. Everybody was baffled or petrified. They exchanged looks and then gazed at the massive garnet shield. They even forgot that the battle was at the most dangerous and fiercest moment. The Thunder God's spear thrust into the blood shield. Lightning was sent everywhere from the impact. The spear continued its attack as its energy surged wildly. However, right when the blood shield appeared, it stood firmly like the strongest fortress in this world that would never be broken. The blood-drawing lines on the shield moved like human veins. The blood mark bloomed like the most beautiful but evil flower. The massive blood shield was intact. It wasn't chipped or damaged. On the contrary, the Thunder God's spear was shaking from the impact with the shield. Chapter 1008. Receive Help from a Savior. Chapter 1008. Receive help from a savior. The blood shield hovered like a mountain. It protected the entire mysterious heavenly glacier as if it was a massive, iron wall that blockaded everything. At the same time, the brutal, bloodthirsty aura surged and expanded fiercely. It covered the area of more than 1,000 miles around. The blood mark on that shield wiggled while the bloodlines moved like worms. It looked like a living object. Blood from hundreds of dead Ghostmark warriors flew in the void like the raindrops. They made the blood shield dark and cruel to the utmost. It looked as if it had become the source of all evil things in this world. The sharp tip of the Thunder God's spear stabbed the shield at the center of the blood mark. The silver spear sprung as if some evil energy had attacked it. Fine cracks began to appear on the spear. Warriors of the Ghostmark clan and Potion and Tool Pavilion kept silent as they were all gazing at the shield. They were aghast because none of them knew what was going on. Fu Wei stood on the mysterious heavenly glacier, her face pale and stern. She furrowed her bold brows, her bright eyes gazing at the blood shield. She was so confused. Du Lin, the chosen son of heaven of the Ghostmark clan, paled. His keen eyes raked through the area to find something. Although he was struggling in his mind, Du Lin took a deep breath and spoke respectfully to the Dark Void, who interfered with our Ghostmark clan's matter. He released his soul consciousness, trying to swamp over the blood shield. However, as soon as his soul consciousness touched it, his consciousness was distorted, as if he had sunk into a peat bog that was very tough to get rid of. His soul energy was consumed massively. Being grim, Du Lin's heart sank into the abyss. He anxiously looked at the shield that had appeared out of nowhere. He was reluctant that he couldn't move forward or retreat. No one replied to him. The massive blood shield seemed to be unowned. With his realm and powerful soul consciousness, Du Lin couldn't detect the general direction of the owner of this shield. He became sterner and more anxious. He looked around, his eyes panic-stricken. Swoosh! 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 The subtle lightning flashes shot out from the tip of the Thunder God's spear. However, the blood chi immediately burst them off and dissolved them. The short spear sprung severely. Du Lin was restlessly terrified. The dim-lit surroundings were absolutely quiet, making his soul uneasy. He felt as if a pair of evil eyes were hiding in the dark, gazing at each of his moves. We, the Ghostmark clan, will remember this. Taking a deep breath, Du Lin said something curt like that. Then, his mind flickered as he grabbed the void and retrieved the Thunder God's spear. The spear turned into a lightning strike, disappearing into his sleeve. Let's go! Du Lin suddenly shouted, flying toward his mad shark battleship. All the warriors of the Ghostmark clan were surprised. They looked at him with great confusion on their faces. The three elders of the Ghostmark clan hesitated. They couldn't help but shout, "Young master!" Du Lin's face was dark and cold, shouting at them. I told you to leave. Did you not hear me? The three elders of the Ghostmark clan discolored. They didn't dare to say more. They spread his order. Members of the Ghostmark clan scattered like fish swimming in the sea. They returned quietly to their battleship. All of them felt as if they had a big rock hanging above their hearts as they looked at the hovering blood shield in silence. Du Lin's battleship started leaving quietly. All the guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion were shocked. Seeing the Ghostmark clan's battleships retreat like a low tide, they felt so happy that they burst out cheering. Standing on the mysterious heavenly glacier, Fu Wei looked at the giant blood shield with a complicated countenance. She was bewildered for a while, and then she bent her body to thank the mysterious helper. Thank you for your support, Precursor. She didn't know who was controlling that massive blood shield. Swoosh! A blood light shot toward the unknown area of the immense outer space. The massive blood shield shrank rapidly, flying away with the blood light. It disappeared shortly after. 5,000 miles away. Du Lin's face was dark and harsh. He swallowed a red pellet, panting. The three elders of the Ghostmark clan stood silently by him. They looked confused and complicated. Young master, one of them called him in a low voice. Du Lin awoke from his thought. He instinctively took a deep breath, his face pale. Its level was much higher than the Thunder God's spear. The three Ghostmark elders were frightened. They finally understood why Du Lin insisted on retreating. The original incipient grade weapons were classified in 7 levels. The Thunder God's spear was at level 2, and it was already a top treasure in the Ghostmark clan. Its reputation was well known around Agate Star area. However, the level of that giant blood shield was much higher than the Thunder God's spear. What kind of F***king intimidating character was able to control this weapon? No wonder why their young master decided to retreat even though his question wasn't answered. He even forgot Lu's order. He didn't keep his mind on the cannon. In Agate's star area, there are some unwritten rules that everyone knows. The higher level the divine weapon was, the higher the power and realm of its owner. Those who could control original incipient grade weapons were at least at peak of ethereal god realm. Most of them were at incipient god realm. If the user's realm and energy weren't enough, he couldn't utilize the divine weapon or protect it. As that shield was a high-level weapon, its owner was also likely an intimidating existence who could stand firm in this world. Dulin couldn't detect the aura of the blood shield's owner. However, he instinctively assumed that helper's realm and understanding of power Upanishad were beyond his perception from the quality of the shield. He was scared, so he left immediately. The three elders of the Ghostmark clan and Dulin thought that it was a wise move. Each divine weapon at original incipient grade is recorded in detail by Potion and Tool Pavilion. The higher level the weapon is, the more detailed the description will be. Dulin's voice was tired and husky. But that blood shield. I have never heard about it before. I don't know its origin and its owner. I don't want the Mad Shark Fleet and everybody else to get involved in this. Young master, you're wise. The three elders of the Ghostmark clan were shocked. They respectfully expressed their opinion. Under any point of view, Dulin's decision was unquestionable. Since that hidden expert could control a divine weapon that was stronger than the Thunder God's spear, that helper should be at peak of incipient god realm in their eyes. This kind of expert was strong enough to clean up their Mad Shark Fleet and burn them into ashes. The other had just shielded the mysterious heavenly glacier and hadn't done anything to attack. Dulin's side thought that it was the opponent's warning and that they should know their competence. If they couldn't recognize it, the next attack would crush them all. Dulin had a good sense. He initially retreated and gave up the cannon. He wanted to protect himself and his family's force. Even if Swolu felt irritated, he couldn't voice anything. Notified the Great Elder. Report our battle in detail. Do not miss any information. Stress about the giant blood shield. I think he may know something. Dulin waved his hand helplessly. He felt tired. He had traveled thousands of miles, caused a grudge against Fu Wei, and left hundreds of his soldiers behind. To Dulin, it was an unprecedented attack. The three elders left quietly. They all looked sad and dispirited. In the vast universe, Fu Wei retrieved the mysterious heavenly glacier. She returned to the deck of her battleship with a pale face. Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards who were scattering around the deck greeted her quietly. Fu Wei's beautiful body was damp with sweat. She smoothed her cascading long hair. Her bright, complicated eyes swept through the warriors standing on the deck. She asked with surprise, "Where's Shiryen?" "I just saw him here. Not long after you and Dulin had engaged in the battle, he quietly left to the training room." Fu Wei furrowed her bold brows. She contemplated, looking at the vast universe in the direction that massive shield had disappeared. She said, "We've met our savior." And Yun totally agreed with her and nodded. "I wonder which precursor has just helped us. Otherwise, we would have had a fatal consequence this time. Anyway," she paused, speaking suspiciously, "we don't have any record of that shield in our records of original incipient grade weapons." Fu Wei's soft body shivered. "No? Are you sure?" And Yun nodded again. "I'm sure. We don't have any information." The light in Fu Wei's bright eyes rippled. She had many thoughts in her mind, so she was absorbed into her thoughts for a long time. That shield is much stronger than the Thunder God's spear. And Yun was baffled, asking unconsciously, "What level?" Fu Wei shook her head. "I don't know. It seems to be beyond my knowledge. I think that even our current pavilion master doesn't have the capability to refine such a powerful weapon." The formation carved on that shield was really marvelous. It looked so real and it was changing every second. I couldn't see the mysteries of that kind of formation. And Yun shivered in fear. She knew Fu Wei's level in refining tools. Fu Wei was a rare talent who came once every 10,000 years in Potion and Tool Pavilion. She was also the prominent candidate for the precious throne of the Pavilion Master. Her knowledge of refining things was approved by the elders. They agreed that her attainment was much better than most of the elders. If she couldn't understand the changing formation on the blood shield, It was enough to prove that the shield was one of the top rarest divine weapons in this world. Perhaps. It doesn't belong in our agate star area, said Fu Wei after pondering for a long time. And Yun was more inexplicably surprised. It doesn't belong in our agate star area. It doesn't belong in our agate star area. Fu Wei was baffled. After a while, she seemed to recall something. Her blue eyes glistered. She whispered instinctively. Our potion and tool pavilion doesn't have any record about him. He's not from agate star area. Right? She shook her head, laughing at her own idea. She thought that she was too skeptical then. Maybe she was so tired that she had tried to link the two things that wouldn't have anything in common. How could an original God Realm warrior control a divine weapon that was stronger than the Thunder God's spear? It was not logical, indeed. Even if an original God Realm warrior had such a divine weapon, he shouldn't have been able to parry Du Lin's attack. It's common sense, right? She tried to reason with her common sense, and she came up with the conclusion that she was just overthinking it. She laughed at her silly idea and thought that it was because she was too tired. Thus, she quit mulling over this thought. Chapter 1009. The shield has become heavier. Chapter 1009. The shield has become heavier, _ Fu Wei and Yun stood in front of a closed door inside the battleship. They gently knocked. If Sheath hadn't poured energy into her body, Fu Wei wouldn't have been able to resist Du Lin's attack for so long. Fu Wei and Yun were going to remember Sheath's support forever in their hearts. After the battleship had departed again, Fu Wei, who hadn't recovered her powers yet, came to show her gratitude to Sheath. They had knocked on the stone door for a while. However, no one had responded. When Fu Wei and Yun had lost their patience, the stone door cracked open, revealing a ferociously ugly face. He had given you a lot of energy. He's cultivating in seclusion to recover his energy. You don't need to come here and disturb him, Leona said with bad manners. Then, she suddenly slammed the door shut, blocking Fu Wei and Yun outside. Both Fu Wei and Yun could see the cold and evil intentions of Leona's eyes. She didn't like the two of them. The two exchanged looks with surprised faces. Being baffled for a while, Fu Wei beamed a faint smile and shook her head. Never mind. We should leave. I also want to recover first. And Yun nodded. She didn't give any advice and just left with Fu Wei. They didn't know what was going on in that cultivating chamber. Leona closed the stone door. She didn't say anything and walked directly towards a secret room. Zwisher and Xianming stayed in a corner of the training room, looking at her with admiration and respect. Leona carefully opened the secret door and then got in. The stone chamber wasn't big. The divine weapon Fu Wei and Du Lin respected as if it was a thing from God lay on the ground like a broken stone. It looked naturally plain without any bloodlight, brutal aura, or any beams of energy. Sheath sat still on the cushion in the center of the room with an ashen face. His body had many bleeding cuts, some of which were deep to the bone as if he got slashed by many massive knives. It looked very scary. He looked weak, sitting cross-legged. His body was slowly gathering wisps of energy. Fei Lan and Ka Tua were watching over him, their faces stern and anxious. At the moment Fu Wei and Du Lin fought, Sheath discreetly walked off the deck and entered his secret chamber in the cultivating room. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua didn't care about the battle between Potion and Tool Pavilion and Du Lin's force. Seeing him leave, they followed. They had seen Sheath release his power and send the blood shield away through the spacelet. From that spacelet, they had seen Du Lin's thunderbolt attack and the subtle change of the giant blood shield, which had stopped Du Lin's extremely fierce attack. Also at that moment, Sheath started to tremble restlessly, his body cracking and bleeding. Ka Tua's eyes had a beam of inexplicable respect at Sheath. He couldn't press down his excitement. Du Lin, at peak of ethereal god realm, had struck his fatal attack with the Thunder God Spear, a divine weapon at original incipient grade, but he couldn't pierce through the shield to damage the mysterious heavenly glacier. What kind of power was that? Ka Tua studied the young man, who was bleeding with reverence arising from the bottom of his heart. Also at that moment, He realized that although he was at the same third sky of original God realm, even if he used his best abilities, he couldn't be an equal match to this young man. He was worth the successor of the Master of the Cortege of Eight. I sent them away. Leona closed the secret chamber, frowning, talking indifferently. Fei Lan nodded. She glanced at Shi Yan, sighing. She didn't agree with the idea that Shi Yan would join the battle himself. At the third sky of original God realm, even if he used the shield to resist Du Lin's attack with force, Shi Yan still got wounded. Since Fei Lan didn't know how severe Shi Yan's wounds were, she was distraught. Leona was mean to Fu Wei and In Yun because of Shi Yan's lousy condition in the secret chamber. Because of them, Shi Yan got hurt. Leona wouldn't give them a nice face. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua were watching the young man in silence. They seemed to be waiting for something. Gradually, the bleeding cut slowly closed at a speed that the naked eye could observe. After the wounds had begun to heal, all the bleeding cracks on his body were healed within 1 hour, leaving nothing. However, Fei Lan and the other two were still severe. Time flew hurriedly. The young man opened his eyes. He exhaled and spoke calmly, "Don't worry. I'm okay." The three of them could finally relax. Du Lin at third sky of ethereal god realm with his thunder god spear had struck a deadly lightning strike. That one was really formidable. He sighed while looking at the shield near him and grinned. Luckily we have this shield. We're so lucky. Or else. Right at the moment, Du Lin struck his lethal attack. Shi Yan had used space power to teleport the blood shield to that specific locus in the void. The blood mark shield in the shield was activated, and it connected to Shi Yan's soul. That was how he was able to control it. Before that attack arrived, the mark on the shield was activated, crazily taking in blood and essence chi around. It also absorbed all the key kinds of energy in his body. At that moment, negative energy of his body, essence chi, and even immortal demon blood were sucked away. All of them were poured into the massive blood shield. 80% of his power was taken away, including negative energy, god power, and immortal demon blood. That was how the blood shield could enlarge and parry that strike. He didn't expect to consume a considerable amount of energy to use that blood shield. At third sky of original god realm, the combination of all kinds of magical energy in his body could compare to the accumulated energy of the second sky or even third sky of ethereal god realm. However, his energy was just enough to perform 10% of the shield. Anyway, even if it was just 10%, it was enough to stop the Thunder God Spear, the strike of Du Lin at peak of ethereal god realm. After Du Lin struck the giant blood shield with Thunder God Spear, the shield still looked intact. It seemed to be unbreakable. However, its owner couldn't endure that attack. He got hurt badly. Luckily, as the battle happened, Shi Yan had discreetly absorbed a significant amount of essence chi from the dead. His consumed energy was refilled quickly, and he was able to have a speedy recovery. At this moment, Shi Yan was in his best condition, which was because of the marvelous function of his devouring ability. His energy wasn't exhausted, which would prevent him from joining the battle. He looked at that small shield, his visage complicated. He waved his hand, and the shield hissed all the way to his hand. The weight of a mountain fell in his hand. He couldn't hold it, so he lowered his hand until he had almost reached the stone ground to steady his body. Too heavy. He took a deep breath, his eyes frightened. This blood shield is as heavy as a mountain. I have enough strength to lift up a 1,000-meter-long mountain, but it's very difficult to lift this shield. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua were baffled. It wasn't like this, said Fei Lan after contemplating for a while. Nodding, Shi Yan gave a forced smile. Yeah, when I picked it up before, it wasn't as heavy as it is now. After it has been activated to resist that strike, its weight has doubled. The other three were surprised. Senior, which level is this blood shield? Ka Tua became excited. The Thunder God Spear Du Lin used is at original incipient grade. I don't know its level, but I could see that his spear couldn't attack this shield. So, this shield's level should be higher than his god spear, right? Fei Lan and Leona also wore a complicated look as they looked at the plain shield. The expert that cultivated Death Power Upanishad had given the Dark Sky family the shield. Fei Lan kept it for so many years. However, Fei Lan didn't know the level of the shield because she had never had its approval to activate it. Thus, she didn't know its mysteries or its power. However, she was curious to see which level this shield was. I don't know its real level, Shuryen chose his words. Fei Lan and the other two were disappointed, but Shuryen continued, but I'm sure that the Thunder God Spear's level is lower than this shield. Because my realm and power were too low, of course, I can't resist Du Lin by myself. I could only resist him because the quality of the shield is much better than the Thunder God Spear. Or else, I wouldn't have only gotten hurt. My god body would burst off. Listening to him, Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tuo's eyes brightened. Shuryen beamed a forced smile, looking at the other three. Seems like our understanding of the Bloodthirsty's cortege of 8 and their master is still shallow. I think our inheritances are the absolute powers of this world, the mysterious but marvelous peak powers Upanishads of all galaxies. Our precursors must be the existences that topped all the high-grade star areas. The other three became so thrilled. Waving his hand, Shuryen muttered, "You guys can leave now." "I'm all right." "Yeah, I want to study the shield. I will try to see if I can find something." The other three nodded, trying to hold the excitement in their hearts. They left with a discreet joy. Dark, corrosion, and chaos were their main powers Upanishads. They knew and they believed that their powers Upanishad were really powerful. If they could prove their belief, they would be more resolute and confident of their powers. It would help strengthen their belief and their persistence in pursuing their realms. They closed the door and left. Shuryen stroked the heavy blood shield. He was confused, mumbling to himself. At the moment that spear impacted the shield, I could sense so many magical changes in the center of the seal. It seems to be the utmost power of that mysterious and complex formation. The one who fabricated this shield had gone against the rules of nature. He did have delicate attainment. While he was talking to himself, his soul altar swayed and spun. His mind relaxed as his soul consciousness seeped into the blood shield. The small, plain shield glowed with a red halo. The blood mark, which had disappeared, emerged little by little. It looked mysteriously evil, as if it had hidden some astonishing surprise. Chapter 1010. When Words Get Sore, Adding More Words is Useless. Chapter 1010. When words get sore, adding more words is useless. Shuryen's soul altar slowly revolved. The mark on the glabella of his host soul glowed. Wisps of soul consciousness poured into the shield and connected to the marvelous formation on the shield. Clusters of blood cloud appeared, changing continually. Shortly after, countless mysterious and extraordinary formations emerged on the shield. The clusters of blood cloud had connected to each of the blood clouds of the mark on his forehead perfectly. Shortly after, the blood mark seemed to turn into a mouth. Inside that mouth, a small vortex appeared and enlarged. It created a fiercely strong suction force. The 700 acupuncture points on his body made some commotion. The vortexes inside each acupuncture points were revolving with the mark of the shield. They had become the extension to the suction force from the shield. His eyes brightened. He stroked the shield unintentionally with one hand. He grinned as he knew he had a good grasp of one ability of the shield. The blood mark on the shield had that powerful suction of devouring power Upanishad. It could collect energy and transmit it to his acupuncture points. This shield wasn't just a divine defensive tool. It had more astounding abilities. Shuryen quieted down. He studied the mysteries of the shield and didn't recognize the time flying. After an unknown time, the stone door squeaked open. Fei Lan frowned, entering the chamber. Some VIP from Potion and Tool Pavilion is about to arrive. Fu Wei and Potion and Tool Pavilion staff are waiting on the deck. Bewildered, Shuryen carefully put away the blood shield. He contemplated for a while and then said naturally, "Let's go there and see." Fei Lan nodded quietly. On the deck of the massive battleship, Fu Wei, and Yoon and Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards were watching, waiting for something solemnly. The guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion nerves relaxed as if they knew that when the person came, they would be free from danger. Fu Wei's face glowed with health. After recovering, she had almost resumed her powers. She was chatting cheerfully with Yoon. When Shiryen, Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua emerged from the cabin, Fu Wei smiled gently and nodded at him. "Are you okay?" "I'm all right." Shiryen looked at the dark void and asked curiously, "Who's about to arrive?" "You'll know later." Fu Wei felt so excited, laughing. You must be interested." Shiryen was more astounded. 2 hours later, an intense light shot toward from a far distant. That light moved like a meteor. It appeared in people's sight shortly. It was a lozenge crystal war chariot, which was fabricated with empty fantasy crystal. It seemed to have the power to move through space. While the war chariot was dashing, it rose ripples of space energy, which looked mysteriously inexplicable. Swoosh! The crystal lozenge war chariot moved like a silky ribbon, but it was as sharp as a sword cutting across the sky. It was heading towards the huge battleship. Fu Wei didn't use the protective halo. She put down all defensive systems to allow that war chariot to land. 10th Elder. Guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion bent their bodies slightly to greet him, their eyes respectful. A lanky old man stood clasping his hands behind his back on the glass war chariot. Standing behind him were 3/3 sky of ethereal god realm experts. They all had calm and heavy auras as imposing as mountains. They were indeed famous warriors. Uncle Duo, Fu Wei smiled weakly, walking forward to greet him and speaking calmly, "You're here." With the first glance at that old man, Shiryen knew his status. He couldn't hide his surprise. Jia Duo, the 10th Elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, had 3rd sky of ethereal god realm cultivation base. He was the one who cultivated the extraordinary space power Upanishad. Most of the fantasy sky ring and the teleport formations that Potion and Tool Pavilion were selling were from this man. In Agate Star Area, his understanding of space power Upanishad could be at the Grandmaster level. As they were warriors who cultivated space power Upanishad, Shiryen assessed him discreetly, his face grave. Space energy fluctuation on Jia Duo's body was trivial, which gave Shiryen a feeling of something unreal. This man was standing on this massive battleship, but he looked like he was in some unknown space. Shiryen was bewildered. He had a strange feeling that Jia Duo was standing in a space crack this entire time. He was worth his 3rd sky of ethereal god realm cultivating space power Upanishad. His god body moved freely through space slits. Without magical materials like empty fantasy crystal, he could still move through space. In the legends, experts cultivating space power could travel through space slits and move from one space node to another within a blink of an eye. At that time, their god bodies would like that they were in the fantasy, unfixed spaces. That kind of warrior was the toughest target. It was hard to kill them. Unless one had the power to block all spaces, they couldn't subdue the experts cultivating space power Upanishad, no matter how many warriors were sent for this assassination mission. Warriors using space power were good at teleporting between space. If they wanted to go, there wouldn't be as many solutions to block them. Jia Duo arrogantly walked off his glass war chariot. He nodded slightly to Fu Wei and said, "You did great. You found the cannon. You earned marvelous merit this time." Fu Wei grinned, instinctively glancing at Shiryen. "I'm just lucky. If he didn't give me the cannon, I wouldn't have gotten the cannon, even if I was better." Until this moment, Jia Duo looked at Shiryen for the first time. He frowned, talking indifferently. "Too bad." "What's too bad?" Shiryen was surprised. "You have the talent in cultivating space power Upanishad, but your powers Upanishads are mixed up. You're cultivating more powers Upanishad." Jia Duo's eyes had a hidden disdain. What a greedy cultivation. It's hard to advance space power Upanishad to the acme. You've progressed space power Upanishad, so you know some abilities. Ordinary people hate that they couldn't risk their lives to cultivate this power. You have a good fortune, but you don't want to grasp it. You have more powers Upanishads, which couldn't help you maintain your pure space power Upanishad. It's too bad. Shuryen pouted, saying nothing. In Jaduo's eyes, space power Upanishad was the best power Upanishad in this world. He considered this kind of power as his glory, and he had invested his lifetime effort in it. Seeing Shuryen was a good seed, but he had mixed powers Upanishad. Jaduo wasn't pleased. He thought that Shuryen was just wasting his innate talent, and he would never reach the most subtly marvelous realm of space power Upanishad. 10th Elder, you two are cultivating space power Upanishad. If you don't mind, shall we discuss it a little bit? Fu Wei kindly suggested. She wanted to help Shuryen increase his attainment in cultivating space power. As she knew Jaduo was the one who had the most exquisite achievement in cultivating this power in Agate Star area, it would be much better than the dozens of books she had given to Shuryen if Jaduo agreed to help. However, it was obvious that Jaduo didn't want to teach Shuryen. He shook his head resolutely. He's not a member of Potion and Tool Pavilion. His cultivating isn't thorough and it is mixed. He won't have any good achievement. I don't want to waste my efforts on him. Listening to him, Fu Wei was embarrassed. She gave a reluctant smile. Shuryen was perplexed, but he didn't say anything. However, he felt annoyed and thought that this old man was too arrogant. He had considered himself a mighty sage in cultivating space power. Oh well, I thought he was very powerful. Turns out he's just an ethereal god realm warrior. Ka-Tua grinned and grunted. The masters of Devil Blood Star and Monster Dragon Star, the incipient god realm experts, are more modest to my senior. Just a third sky of ethereal god realm and you think you're rocketing into the sky? Haha. Well, it's like water in a full bottle that doesn't move while water in a bottle half full sways a lot. Jaduo frowned. One of the third sky of ethereal god realm warriors standing behind him shouted angrily, his face cold. Wanton. Fu Wei and Inyun discolored. They didn't think that these two groups of people would quarrel with each other instead of discussing fruitfully. Fu Wei suddenly recognized that she was a little self-righteous in this case. Pushing too much wouldn't help. She thought that as Jaduo was cultivating space power Upanishad, he would appreciate Shuryen, a warrior cultivating space power Upanishad too. However, she knew she was wrong from Jaduo's voice and manner. Jaduo always wanted to find an assistant to handle his junk works, which were fabricating high-quality fantasy sky ring and teleport formation. After that, he could have more time to study his space power Upanishad. Shuryen was a suitable candidate. He met all the requirements. However, he denied joining Potion and Tool Pavilion, which gave Jaduo a big question. That was why he wasn't so friendly to Shuryen. It was all because of his presumption. If my senior wasn't generous enough, would you have gotten the canon? Ka-Tua smiled faintly. Some people don't know how to repay a favor. Quite the contrary, they only have harsh words. I can say my knowledge has widened today. Jaduo's eyes shrank, talking faintly. We paid 100 million divine crystals for the canon. It's like a business. We don't owe you anything. Pausing for a while, Jaduo continued indifferently, as we're delivering you to Shadow Ghostly Prison, it's a generous bonus out of our scheme. Potion and Tool Pavilion owes you nothing. Ka-Tua laughed again. He wanted to say more, but Shuryen had stopped him. He looked at Fu Wei, bent slightly to greet her, and then said, "Your rescue team is here. I think it's time for us to leave." Fu Wei's bright eyes were flustered as she whispered, "We haven't reached Shadow Ghostly Prison yet. Moreover, our destination is in the place too. You guys can go with us anyway." Shaking his head, Shuryen glanced at Jaduo with strange eyes. "Someone doesn't welcome us on this battleship. I don't want to stay here to irritate people. We should bid farewell from here." He nodded to Fei Lon. Fei Lon understood his intention. She went to the cultivating room to call for Zhuo Shi and Xian Ming. Jaduo was still arrogant. He just snorted and didn't want to make them stay. Fu Wei had a headache. She tried to tell Shuryen to stay until they reached the destination. However, Shuryen insisted on leaving. Shuryen nodded to Fu Wei and his team departed from the battleship when Zhuo Shi, Xian Ming, and Fei Lon got back on the deck. They flew into the dark, immense galaxy and headed to Shadow Ghostly Prison. Seeing Shiryan fly away, Fu Wei had a complicated look. She sighed inwardly. At the moment she looked at Jia Duo, she had a hidden sadness. She was a little indifferent, opposite of her previous warm welcome. Chapter 10-11, Shadow Ghostly Prison. Chapter 10-11, Shadow Ghostly Prison, _ He's from Blood Devil's tribe. He saved McGee, the youngest son of the chief of Evil Dragon tribe. He's the best friend of Ghost Hunter from the Brutal Dragon tribe. Why did you enrage him? After Shiryan's team left, Fu Wei asked her uncle with her furrowing, bold brow. As they were both elders of the Potion and Tool Pavilion, her status and position weren't lower than Jia Duo's, even though Fu Wei was younger. She didn't need to hide things as she could tell him directly. And Yun also thought that Jia Duo's deed wasn't appropriate, but she didn't have the right to voice here. There was no need to mention Shiryan's relationships with the leaders of Monster Clan and Demon Clan. With only the fact that Shiryan had given them the cannon, and Yun thought Potion and Tool Pavilion owed him. Then, Shiryan didn't leave when Dulin attacked them fiercely. At the critical moment, Shiryan had helped Fu Wei recover her energy. And Yun gradually developed good feelings for Shiryan. She thought he was worth establishing a friendship with. However, right as he had arrived, Jia Duo used sharp words to force Shiryan's team to leave the battleship. And Yun thought that his deed wasn't appropriate. We're from Potion and Tool Pavilion. In this agate star area, we don't participate in any battles. We don't need to care about any force. Jia Duo's visage was arrogant. He clasped his hands while he spoke, although Potion and Tool Pavilion doesn't join any war or battle of the star area, we do have the power to overturn the situation of this star area. Even if he comes from a stronger force, he won't dare to cause any grudge against us. We don't need to worry about anyone. I don't know why you had to do so. Fu Wei shook her head. Jia Duo looked at her in the eyes. Why you care about him that much? Fu Wei was bewildered. She thought and then said, he helped me. Jia Duo smiled coldly. On my way here, I've heard you repeat his name many times and the frequency was increasing. I can feel that you really appreciate this man. I think it's not a good sign. Taking a deep breath, Jia Duo lowered his voice. You're the hope of our party. Your innate talents are excellent and you have been concentrating always. You have the competence to control Potion and Tool Pavilion in the future. If you let affection distract you, our hope will be drifted away. Fu Wei's eyes became baffled as she said with a surprised countenance. Is that the reason you tried to force him to leave? Jia Duo didn't deny it. I thought that you shouldn't stay with him for a long time. This man could possibly be the Mara in your heart. I'm responsible for cleaning it for you. Fu Wei and Yun were astounded. It's unreasonable. You guys are thinking too much. Fu Wei gave a forced smile. I hope so. But we should prevent it early. Jia Duo was persistent. Fu Wei sighed begrudgingly, her face bitter. She became more determined. Senior, that old man is despicable, seriously. He took advantage of you. But instead of saying thanks, he mocked and provoked us. Senior, you're too nice since you didn't get angry. Harumph, if I got angry, I wouldn't have let it go. Shiryan, Fei Lan, Leona, Ka Tua, Zhuoshi, and Xian Ming were staying on a blue-gray asteroid, which was rushing in the dark sea of stars. They were heading to Shadow Ghostly Prison. There were many meteorites moving in this dark outer space, so their asteroid wasn't really eye-catching. Fei Lan used her energy to control it. It didn't fly as fast as the Potion and Tool Pavilion's battleship flew. However, they weren't hurrying. Although their asteroid was slow, the distance to Shadow Ghostly Prison wasn't very long. They didn't waste much time anyway. When they say something you don't like, just leave. We don't need to quarrel with those people. Shiryan smiled relaxedly. Moreover, he wasn't wrong. We exchanged the cannon for many things. It was a fair trade. I was about to leave. As he was talking impulsively, there could have been a reason for us to leave though. He's right. Fei Lan understood the matter. Potion and Tool Pavilion has a big internal issue. Although Du Lin failed this time, it's not certain that the enemy wouldn't make another move. It's not good if we mingle with them. I think they can't even protect themselves. The next attack may be more furious. It would be perilous if we stayed on that battleship. Leona also nodded. She had prepared to leave already. When Shiryen countered Du Lin and hurt himself, she thought that it was absolutely not a wise move. Even if we wanted to leave, we should leave confidently and at ease. Now it's like we were enraged, so we left. I don't like it. Ka Tua shook his head. Apparently, he was annoyed. Along the way, he cursed Jia Duo often with extreme language. He had even insulted 18 of Jia Duo's generations once. You guys are going to Shadow Ghostly Prison for the inheritance of the holy beast Black Tortoise. Do you have any clue about it? Shiryen didn't bother Ka Tua and smiled at Zwisher. We have no clue. We heard that its body is in Shadow Ghostly Prison. I thought that if we got close enough, I would be able to sense it. Zwisher was serious. She smiled pretty cutely. Shiryen GG, is there any problem if we follow you? Of course not. But I'm afraid you guys would encounter more dangers. Dangers? What kind of dangers? We also have business at Shadow Ghostly Prison this time. Perhaps we will face the Dark Shadow Clan. I'm afraid unexpected things would happen to you if you follow us. No problem. I think you can handle them well. Zwisher looked livelily beautiful, standing on the asteroid. She was wearing a pure white long dress. She looked very cute and innocent. Anyway, her slender legs made people dream of them. It has been many years, and this little girl has grown up to be a charming lady. No wonder why that drifting cloud warrior wanted to harass her. Since her bloodline had the inheritance of water power Upanishad, this power Upanishad was formed naturally within her body. It made her skin exceptionally smooth and soft. Her bearings were pure and gentle. Half a year later, a blue-gray meteorite entered Shadow Ghostly Prison. It was a particular area of Agate Star area that had gray mist covering the area year-round. Starlight in this area was blocked, making it deep, dark, and mysterious. Battles happened unceasingly in Shadow Ghostly Prison. This unique area had many natural resources and races living together. Although most of the tribes here were native, there were several alien tribes from other galaxies. For example, the Dark Shadow Clan. Rumor said that it was a tribe coming from another star area. They understood the concept of space passages, which connected Shadow Ghostly Prison to the other worlds. No one knew where they dwelled. Standing on the asteroid, they curiously watched the darker area in front of them. Perhaps it was because of its particular condition of lacking light, but this place was cold and spooky. They saw a cold water current flowing, but they didn't know where it was headed. Every time it passed by them, they would feel a chill invading deep into their bones, their souls shaking hard. There are so many wrecked battleships in front of us. Fei Lan suddenly lifted up her head and hissed. Swoosh! The blue-gray asteroid accelerated, moving forward like a meteor. On the asteroid, Shiryen's pupils shrank as he shouted, "There's a fierce battle here." They saw hundreds and then thousands of ruined battleships. They were shattered like crushed stones. Corpses floated in this dark and eerie sea of stars. They belonged to Human Clan, Ghostmark Clan, Monster Clan, Dark Clan, Corpse Clan, and even the Wood Clan and Ice Clan. Those corpses weren't intact. Some were dried and weathered. However, they hadn't been decayed yet due to the cold temperature. Fragments of battleships, broken war chariots, flying carriage, and other vehicles floated and drifted. There were countless pieces like that in this creepy area. Shiryen's soul consciousness moved like a shuttle and explored the area. There's no aura of living beings. No one is still alive. Shiryen frowned, his face stern. As soon as they arrived in Shadow Ghostly Prison, they immediately saw an extremely tragic battlefield. These images had impressed them deeply. Shiryen understood that this place wasn't like any other place. If they were careless, they would become one of those hovering corpses. Everybody put on a heavy-hearted complexion. Chapter 1012, Dark Shadow Clan. Chapter 1012, Dark Shadow Clan, _. On their way, they saw more fragments of battleships and war chariots, and a lot more corpses of warriors from different clans. Shadow Ghostly Prison had battles year-round. It didn't have a peaceful day. This place was the most chaotic area of Agate Star area. Its dwellers got used to wars and bloody battles. Many warriors had experienced hundreds of battles. They all had various fighting experiences. People living in this place were naturally cruel. People who could adapt well were able to survive. There was no principle here aside from power. The realm and competence were the rulers that measured warriors. Senior, Shadow Ghostly Prison is really vast. Without a direction, it's hard to find the target. Ka-Tua felt a little bored standing on the asteroid looking at the floating fragments of battleships nearby. He asked reluctantly, "When will we reach the other end of this place?" They had been traveling for half a month in Shadow Ghostly Prison, always heading forward. They had seen a lot of terrible aftermaths of battles, but they hadn't found any living creature. This dark and desolate sea of stars didn't seem to have anything alive. Gradually, people had become impatient. This dispirited and helpless feeling of being unable to find their target slowly filled their souls. "No hurry. We have a clear direction. It's just that you don't know it." Shuryen scolded him, standing on the bluish asteroid and looking at the far distance ahead of them. A scarlet drop of blood that looked like a gemstone cracked open. Strange energy fluctuations emerged from it. It was the light that the souls couldn't see that extended towards the corners of this deep area. In just a blink, it could travel billions of miles. Squinting, Shuryen's eyes sparkled with blood light. He had a connection with that drop of blood. The magical energy fluctuated and rippled from him. "We will continue moving forward." He turned to look at Phelan. Phelan nodded quietly. She didn't say anything, unceasingly pouring more energy into that blue-gray meteorite that they were riding. The rock then flew forward even faster. Zhuoshi and Xianming sat neatly in a corner of the steroid, their breathing steady and deep and eyes closed. They were still cultivating and studying Power's Upanishad. They were using divine crystals to accumulate energy with the hope of advancing further. While their meteorite was dashing, Shuryen observed Zhuoshi. He was really amazed. He could see that Zhuoshi's energy was increasing every day. Although her energy accumulation wasn't as fast as Shuryen's when he used Devouring Power Upanishad, Zhuoshi's speed of taking in divine crystals was something that ordinary people couldn't compare. Zhuoshi's blood contained the true blood of holy beast Black Tortoise. The Black Tortoise was a creature born in the immemorial epoch of Grace Mainland. It had jumped into outer space very early. From some aspect, immemorial creatures were more favored by nature than the God Clan and Demon Clan. Their existences were created by the mysteries of earth and heaven. It seemed like they could understand the nature of their powers right when they started to cultivate it. Each of those creatures had powers that could shatter the world. The holy beast Black Tortoise was the holy spirit of water. Legends said that from the moment it was born, it had gained the subtle power of water. Its bloodline also had the essence of water power, which could be passed on to each generation. However, sometimes this power was weak and sometimes it was very powerful. Xianming was from the same race as Black Tortoise, but due to the fact that the inheritance had been passed through many different generations, his bloodline wasn't here. However, it was unknown why Zhuoshi had an extremely pure bloodline. Xianming felt like he had picked up the top treasure when he found Zhuoshi. He insisted that Zhuoshi's blood was the closest to his holy ancestor Black Tortoise. She was the most eligible descendant to inherit the extreme essence of water from Black Tortoise. Frowning and sensing, Shuryen's countenance was strange. He nodded discreetly. He didn't doubt what Xianming had told him about Zhuoshi's ability anymore. Zhuoshi was born to cultivate the essence water power Upanishad. Her blood contained the mysterious power Upanishad that made her cultivation have no bottleneck. Her realm was increasing every day, although it was just by a little at a time. This kind of rapid advancement made someone with a speedy progress like Shuryen admire and appraise. If there were geniuses in this world, Zhuoshi was one of them. Compared to her talent, Shuryen wasn't good enough. Knowing someone was watching her, Zhuoshi opened her eyes. When she found that it was Shuryen, she smiled sweetly. "Why are you looking at me? You're at third sky of King God Realm. I want to know when you can enter original God Realm." When Zhuoshi thought and then answered him, "It should be short. I think around half a year later. I can break through to original God realm. Phelan, Leona, and Katua didn't notice them. However, they became baffled upon hearing Youngster. They looked at Youngster as if they were watching a monster with astounded faces. They knew that Youngster had just reached second sky of King God realm when they were on Fu Wei's battleship. How long has it been? And she said that she could reach original God realm within half a year. What kind of cultivating speed was that? Abnormal. Totally abnormal. Phelan's team acclaimed in their heads. Quite the contrary, Xianming didn't feel strange. He'd accompanied Youngster for so many years that he had become numb to her progress a long time ago. He wasn't surprised at all. Yeah, it's really fast this time. Previously, I couldn't be that fast. When I broke through to another realm, it used to take several years, Youngster explained humbly. It's because of Fu Wei's pellet. She gave me a lot of pellets to cultivate the soul and energy. They are all level 5 or 6 divine grade pellets. Those pellets have helped me accumulate energy really fast. And at the same time, I don't need to worry about the progress of my realm. That's how I naturally break through faster. So when you didn't use pellets, it took several years to break through a realm? Katua was baffled. He scratched his head agitatedly. He thought that he was about to collapse. Yeah, I didn't have pellets, so I just used divine crystals to accumulate energy. Of course, it was really slow, Youngster answered earnestly. Katua dropped his jaw, looking at Youngster and then Shiryan. He couldn't speak for a long time. Phelan and Leona were also dumbstruck. It's the ancient continent, though. It has mysteries that we would never be able to imagine. It could nurture such talents. Phelan sighed dejectedly, having a feeling of being defeated. Previously, they couldn't understand Shiryan's miracle in his cultivation. However, they finally understood why Shiryan didn't have any blockage in accumulating energy since they accompanied him for a long time. They now knew why Shiryan could cultivate that quickly. But Youngster, she was just an ordinary little girl. Without that terrifying devouring power Upanishad, how could she be so unusually talented? The three of them looked at each other, shaking their heads and sighing inwardly. They thought that they would never be able to catch up with these two little monsters. Fu Wei Jiejie was really nice, Youngster cocked her head, blinking innocently. When we left the battleship, I saw that she feels so lost. She didn't want it. I think she didn't want us to leave. Shiryan frowned and didn't say anything. They had traveled a long way afterward. Today, they finally saw some war chariots flying. Those were the butterfly-shaped war chariots, which were flat like shells. Each war chariot had some holes that allowed people to stay. Shiryan's team could vaguely see many people inside. There were around 10 butterfly-shaped war chariots made of a strange wooden material. They looked light but durable, so they flew really fast. The edges of those war chariots emitted strange light beams of energy. Those butterfly war chariots were heading to a desolate star, which looked like a ruin with many bottomless deep holes running directly into the core of the star. Those in-death caves released cold air currents. Apparently, it was an abandoned mineral star. Perhaps it was exploited until it was emptied out. 10 butterfly war chariots hissed, descended, and then flew into the deep holes. They released their soul consciousness, extending deep further. Their soul consciousnesses are extraordinary. It's hard to lock them. Phelan stood up quietly. Immediately, the asteroid they were riding halted 10,000 meters away from that mineral star. She frowned and said to Shiryan, "Seems like they're looking for something." They all sent their soul consciousnesses deep inside that mineral star. Shiryan's visage wasn't pleasant. His eyes became darker as he said, "They are Dark Shadow Clan warriors." Hearing him, Phelan and Leona put on cold countenances. Phelan took a deep breath, her murderous aura emitting thickly. Are they really members of the Dark Shadow Clan? Butterfly-shaped war chariots, unidentified soul consciousness. They are the features of the Dark Shadow Clan, Shiryan nodded. I got this information from Fu Wei when I chatted with her. I think we aren't wrong. Phelan and Leona looked so cold. They had ferocious and malignant looks when they observed that mineral star. Let's go there and check it out, said Shiryan indifferently. Phelan immediately controlled the meteorite, heading towards the abandoned, desolate mineral star. This mineral star had countless holes. They were like the dark abyss leading to the subterranean world. Cold chi fumed from each hole as if the materials in this mineral stars belonged to the ice class. When they landed on the mineral star, all the butterfly war chariots of Dark Ghost Clan had all disappeared into the holes. Shiryan quietly sensed for a while. He found that those wisps of roving soul consciousness still seeped deep into the place as if they were trying to find something. We're going down there too. Shiryan jumped off the asteroid and then plunged into a hole. In their group, Fei Lan had second sky of ethereal god realm, but her real fighting competence could compare to peak of ethereal god realm. Leona and Ka-Tua were also the kind of warriors that could leap their realms and challenge other higher realm warriors. Shiryan's competence was somehow measurable, anyway. Unless they encountered incipient god realm existences down there, they wouldn't have to bear much damage. If they were unlucky and faced many peak of ethereal god realm experts, Shiryan had the confidence to move his team to the nearest space node within a blink of an eye. As he was confident, he wasn't fearful. He led his team into the ground. They had pierced through dozens of thousands of meters before the extremely cold subterranean world appeared in their vision. This mineral star had many crystal glaciers. It looked like a dreamy icy glass world. The glaciers and icicles stood and supported this world, giving it a spacious but empty look. The hissing noise came from the butterfly war chariots which arose from the continuous ice mountains. Roving wisps of soul consciousness raked through the place as if they were trying to find anything alive. After Shiryan's team got into the icy world underground, their life energies fluctuated clearly. They immediately became the target of the Dark Shadow clansmen. Shortly after, the butterfly war chariots began to fly towards them, shortening the distance between them. Chapter 1013, Proactively Kill. Chapter 1013, Proactively Kill, _. The three butterfly war chariots approached. They were discernible between the gaps of the icicles. They moved like crying shuttles. One of them dashed over. Instantly, it hovered above an icicle in front of Shiryan's team. The other two circled, observing like guards that prevented Shiryan's team from escaping. A face emerged from one of the holes on the butterfly war chariot in front of them. That face looked similar to most of the other creatures from many races. It had eyes, a nose, and a mouth. However, the head of that face was totally different. It looked like an octopus with many tentacles. That creature didn't have hair. Those tentacles, which were more than a meter long, were his hair. His tentacles were brown-gray like his skin color. Each of his tentacles was a little bit bigger than a human thumb. They draped over his shoulder and chest and reached his waist. His tentacles could fly even when there was no wind. This dark shadow warrior wore a set of gray armor that hid behind his tentacles. However, half of his body that protruded from the war chariot looked gentle and slender like a willow catkin. It gave people a feeling that they were floating, just like his wandering soul consciousness. At first look, Shiryan could confirm that he was from the Dark Shadow clan. Tentacle-headed, a roving soul consciousness, and a butterfly-shaped chariot were their unique features. He was 100% sure about those creatures' origin when he saw their features. The other half of that Dark Shadow man was still inside the war chariot. His brown-gray eyes moved fast while wisps of his soul consciousness were moving around Shiryan's team. He frowned as if he had confirmed that they weren't his targets. The man didn't say anything and retreated into his butterfly war chariot. The butterfly war chariot flew away swiftly. It moved far away from this area so quickly that they couldn't see it anymore. They're looking for something. Shiryan was surprised. It should be someone. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come so quickly when they sensed our life signals. Fei Lan nodded and agreed with him. That man doesn't have a high realm, Leona said with her hoarse voice. Second sky of ethereal god realm, Shiryan concluded easily. The soul consciousness of the Dark Shadow clan was super sensitive. I heard it's because of the tentacles on their heads. Those disgusting things give them the ability to use soul consciousness to invade the sea of consciousness. They are good at soul fighting, indeed. The Dark Shadow clan has a floating god body. They are fast, but they aren't strong enough. Usually, they won't engage in close combat. It's their weakness. From the moment he had decided to go to Shadow Ghostly Prison, he had learned about everything related to this mysterious clan. From Wulon, Fu Wei, and Ghost Hunter, Shi had known about the Dark Shadow clan before he had seen them. He knew their advantages and disadvantages. What should we do? Ka Tua grinned fiendishly. Are we capable of defeating them? Don't rush. Just watch for a while to assess their general competence. There are around 10 butterfly war chariots entering this place. If each of them has 1 second sky of ethereal god realm expert, we must not act rashly, hissed Shi. I don't think so, Ka Tua laughed. If they came here with such a strong force, they wouldn't have let us go that easily. I think they perhaps thought that we were troublesome and they didn't want trouble. Fei Lan nodded. Shi chuckled, indeed. Anyway, we still need to make sure about it. We can't be impulsive. I understand. Around 10 butterfly war chariots were roaming between the glaciers. They were exploring as their soul consciousnesses raked around the area. Shi team gathered and quietly moved around the area that the butterfly war chariots were operating. Sometimes, they stopped by the icicles to check. After 1 hour, there are around 50 of them. Each butterfly war chariot has 3 to 5 warriors. They have only 1 second sky of ethereal god realm expert, 2 first sky of ethereal god realm experts, and the rest are at original god realm or king god realm. Shi opened his eyes and spoke to the others while standing on an iceberg. He lowered his voice. We can't defeat them at once. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua were shocked. They became cold immediately. They knew that Shi had made up his mind. Zhou Shi and Xian Ming were frightened, looking at him bewilderedly. They were so skeptical. Among this group of 4, Fei Lan was at second sky of ethereal god realm, Leona had first sky of ethereal god realm, while Ka Tua and Shi were at third sky of original god realm. With these competencies, they wanted to strike the group of Dark Shadow Clan. In Zhou Shi's and Xian Ming's eyes, they were crazy. If they surround us and attack us at once, it will be hard to get out of it safely. As Leona used to be the regimental commander of the Bloody Legion of the Dark Firmament Divine Nation, she understood this kind of fighting well. She continued with a fierce face, divide them to attack. We will start with the weakest or the ones that stay furthest from their team. We must do this fast. Once we finish, we must move quickly. We just need to do so 3 or maybe 5 times max, and then we can destroy half of their force. Our chance to win will be bigger. We should do it like that. Ka Tua nodded continually. He used to be the leader of a pirate force. He had his skills in team battles. He thought Leona's tactic was flawlessly perfect. Apparently, it suited them the most. All right. Shi wasn't hesitant at the critical time. He decided the plan, squinting. Wait for a while. First, we will lock the butterfly war chariot that is flying furthest away from the others. He knew that they shouldn't delay. If they wanted to attack the Dark Shadow Clan, they had to seize the chance when the others were scattered in their searching mission. Once the Dark Shadow clansmen found their targets, they would gather. If they attacked them at that time, it wasn't different from putting their heads in their fishnet. A flow of soul consciousness with space power moved like an invisible lightning strike between the glaciers. High Realm warriors could feel the energy of something moving at breakneck speed. However, since that wisp of soul consciousness had space power, they couldn't lock it. 3 seconds later, Shi opened his eyes. He didn't talk but flew fast towards a general direction. Leona and Ka Tua didn't hesitate. They turned into a dark light and a gray mist respectively and followed him. Fei Lan slightly frowned. She begrudgingly urged her powers to bring Zhou Shi and Xian Ming, turning into a pale air current and flying towards a crack in the glacier. A butterfly war chariot was moving around a dark ice peak. 5 dark shadow warriors had half of their upper bodies protruding from the shell chariot. Their tentacles were moving around while they observed the place with cold, indifferent eyes. In that group of 5 members of the Dark Shadow Clan, there was one at third sky of Original God Realm Expert, one at second sky of Original God Realm, and the other 3 had King God Realm. When their tentacles touched each other while floating around, they sent electric sparks into the void. It seemed like that was how their soul consciousnesses interacted and how it powered up their sensing powers. The soul consciousness of Third Sky of Original God Realm clansmen responded. The Dark Shadow Man shouted, his eyes sparkling. Someone's here. The other 4 Dark Shadow warriors cheered up. They gathered their soul consciousnesses, contributing energy to each other. Standing behind an ice rock, Sheath quietly came closer. He arched his brows, his eyes cold. He could feel the Dark Shadow Man's soul consciousness sensing. Indeed, their sensing powers were terrifying. He had planned to come nearer before striking them. However, they had spotted him earlier. Without hesitation, he attacked instantly when his life signal was discovered. Sheath's soul altar spun, urging his refined power Upanishad. 3 electric-like ribbons flashed and then disappeared into thin air. Swoosh! 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 The 3 cold white bone thorns shot out from a space slit with a power that could crush the void. They grumblingly stabbed the butterfly war chariot. Crack! 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 The impact upon the butterfly war chariot sounded clear and pleasing. It was so tough that it didn't shatter instantly. However, it was blown, spinning aimlessly. The 5 Dark Shadow men were dizzy. Their bodies were swaying hard on that war chariot. Swoosh! A beam of pale light crossed over. One of the Dark Shadow men at King God Realm had a bleeding hole in his neck. His blood was sent away like arrows. Swoosh! Swoosh! The white light continued to roar as if it came to take the souls away, which affected the souls severely. The butterfly war chariot was still spinning. The other 4 Dark Shadow men were panic-stricken. They couldn't help but scream awfully, trying to call their fellow men. Block! A cold and low voice arose like an evil spell. The butterfly war chariot was suspended in their space. Sounds couldn't even pierce through what seemed to be a barrier. The endless darkness had attacked them all of a sudden. The space confining them became so dark that they couldn't even see their own fingers. In that darkness, which was as thick as ink, their soul consciousnesses couldn't navigate. Seeing the darkness fall over them, Sheath halted midway. He released his soul consciousness, searching the new target. When Katua and Fei Lan arrived, he hissed, "Leave it to Leona. We'll attack the new target." Then he dashed away, disappearing like an arrow. Dash! In a corner of the crystal icy world underground, the second sky of Ethereal God Realm expert took out a pocket compass, his face grimaced. The compass had many exquisite lines, expanding around. It showed many spooky green light dots. Each of them represented one of his troops. The compass was his tool to locate his troops. However, the green light dots in his compass had disappeared continually. He knew what it meant when the light dots disappeared. His troopers had their souls connected to the compass. If one of them didn't die utterly, which meant that their soul altars still remained, the light dots wouldn't disappear even if their god bodies were smashed. That light dots represented the life seal of a soul. In another area, the 3 light dots disappear from his compass. The Dark Shadow expert paled. He hissed, "Stop our searching mission. Send my message asking our fellows to gather here." Immediately, the 2 first sky of Ethereal God Realm experts next to him were shaken. They hurried to send the message. "Someone is hunting us down." He took a deep breath, his restless mind gradually calming down. It felt like he had cold water splash away his flames of anger. It's the group of humans we've seen earlier. His 2 troops had eyes as cold as a glacier. They shouted in unison, they don't know whether they should live or not. Chapter 1014, A Youngster of the Dark Clan. Chapter 1014, A Youngster of the Dark Clan, _ The ice mountains and glaciers glowed fulgently. Deadly sharp icicles were scattered around. Hiding in a crack of the glacier in a corner of this icy world was a short and thin figure, his complexion grave. He gingerly hid his god body in the blind corner of the glacier while lifting his face to peep through the crack above his head. It was a youngster of the Dark Clan. He looked around 15 or 16 years old. He had a pair of dark pupils' eyes, which looked crazy and ruthless as if he was a bloody, insane slaughterer. The murderous aura on his body wasn't something young people at his age should have. His light purple hair was disheveled, covering his forehead and half of his face. The teenager squinted, his face evil. He didn't even blink when watching the butterfly war chariot of the Dark Shadow clan appear above the crack. This teenager wore simple black warrior clothes, which exposed his arms like iron. His pair of arms had many scars weaving with each other. The scabs of his scars had fallen off a long time ago. Now, they looked like odd snakes. He had been hiding in this glacier for a long time. To avoid the pursuit of the Dark Shadow clan, he had been hiding all this time. His eyes sparkled with a harsh light. From his angle, he could see a butterfly war chariot moving away from this area. The youngster narrowed his eyes, paying more attention. All of a sudden, that butterfly war chariot exploded. Electric beams and fire burst off everywhere. It was hit severely. The youngster's pupils shrank, his face stiff. Boom! In the burning flame, 3 Dark Shadow men emerged. They were panic-stricken, shouting crazily. A muscular shadow emerged like lightning. 3 white bone thorns flew out like deadly weapons. They tore space, thrusting towards the 3 Dark Shadow men. An old woman with a lot of facial wrinkles appeared all of a sudden. She extended her hand, grabbing the void. 5 pallid threads shot out. They moved as if they could erode everything. They entered the god bodies of the 3 Dark Shadow men. As the teenager was watching, the 3 Dark Shadow men were weakened rapidly. Their bones exploded as the threads pierced through their skins. They were bleeding badly. A mysterious and yet evil black hole appeared, floating around. A powerful suction force fiercely came from that black hole and swallowed the soul altars of the 3 Dark Shadow warriors. The teenager felt very chilled. He was frightened. He then hid deeper and more carefully as he was afraid that the others could sense him. The young man hovering above the crack recalled the 3 bone thorns. They turned into 3 beams of white light and disappeared into his sleeves. That young man was nonchalant as he looked around. His cold eyes suddenly looked in the youngster's general direction. The youngster was shaken. He had a strange feeling that the man had sensed him. His heart sank into the abyss. That young man seemed to know that he was hiding under the crack of the iceberg. However, he didn't do anything as he frowned, nodded to the old woman, and disappeared. The dead bodies of the 3 Dark Shadow warriors shriveled and dried up as if water and blood in their bodies were all sucked up. This looked extremely odd. The fragments of the butterfly war chariot fell grumblingly on the ice above the youngster's head, echoing clearly. The youngster felt tense. He hesitated for a while and then hurried to move through the ice cracks. He knew he was revealed. As he was afraid that the young man would use some malicious attacks, he instinctively moved to avoid. He had pierced through the ice cracks for a long time like a fast shuttle. After he felt relatively safe, he stopped and recalled the moment he had peeked at the others. He didn't know why he felt something towards that young man and the old woman. It seemed strange to him, anyway. Vaguely, he felt like he had some connection with those two, but he didn't know what it was. It was just his pure intuition. The teenager frowned, considering things inside the glacier. He hesitated whether or not he should go there and check. Was someone down there lately? Fei Lan looked at Yan and asked uncertainly after they had left that area. She released the pale air current, covering Zhushi and Xianming. Yeah, I spotted life energy fluctuate down there. It was hidden. If I didn't cultivate death and life power Upanishad, I wouldn't have been able to spot it. Yan nodded. That was a member of the Dark Clan, I suppose. The Dark Clan has a profound understanding of soul power. They are good at hiding soul aura and things. Perhaps that one was the target of the Dark Shadow Clan's troop. Why didn't you force him out? Fei Lan was surprised. Our target is the Dark Shadow Clan. We don't need to cause more trouble. Yan shook his head, frowning. They know us too. It's not easy to ambush them anymore. It seems like we have to take real action. Yeah, we can't ambush anymore, Fei Lan frowned. We should wait for Leona and Katua. 3 minutes later, 2 shadows appeared with thick, murderous auras. Blood was still dripping from their fingers. Evidently, they had just murdered someone. Their hands smelled like fresh blood. We hunted them one more time, Katua grinned. Once they engage in close combat, the Dark Shadow clansmen are limited. It's the 5th time, though. However, we can't find more scattered members. They are gathering by that expert. Fei Lan pointed to a direction, her voice mournful. That place. Leon and Ka Tua looked at Shiyan. Since Fei Lan's man and Leona's father were confined by the Dark Shadow clan, the resentment they had for that clan was carved into their bones. And that clan also killed the king of demonic insects, devouring gold silkworm and the holy spirit god. If Shiyan had a chance to avenge them, he wouldn't let it slip away. From Fu Wei, he knew that Zhuo Lu, the great elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, also had a close connection to the Dark Shadow clan, and he knew that this clan came from another galaxy. The resentment Fei Lan, Leona, and Shiyan felt, the chance they had to slaughter a troop of the Dark Shadow clan, and the opportunity to ask them where the Dark Shadow clan imprisoned their loved ones were enough to support this massacre. The strong warriors of the opponents are still fine. The three ethereal god realm experts are staying with each other. We aren't afraid of battling them, however, we may get injured afterward. Shiyan wore a cold face. He considered for a while and then turned to face a direction. He said, perhaps we may try to use an available bait. Fei Lan's eyes brightened as she understood his idea. She agreed immediately, we can try once. Leona, Ka Tua, Xianming, and Zhuo didn't know what they meant and just looked at them. Over there, Fei Lan pointed at a glacier. The one that the Dark Shadow clan wants to find is there. He's hiding in the cracks of the glacier. If he moves, the Dark Shadow clan will detect his aura immediately. They will go after him. Once they continue their investigation, their formation will be dismissed, and we will have a chance again. Should we force him to move? Ka Tua laughed. Right, Shiyan pointed at the exact location of the teenager and said, you go there and pound the ice underground. I think he's hiding in there. He must use his energy to move. Once he does that, the Dark Shadow clan will find him immediately. When that happens... Got it. Ka Tua was excited. He smiled evilly as he dashed away. Boom, boom, boom. Shortly after, they heard the noise of the ice shattering. Ka Tua used his energy to attack the icicles over there. The several thousand-meter glacier cracked as it got hit. The teenager hiding in the crack of the glacier grimaced. He was foul-mouthed. However, he could only move around like a little mouse piercing through the ice. His energy burst out and his life magnetic field was exposed. I'm going there to force him to run. Once he leaves, the Dark Shadow clan will chase after him with all their forces. In such an operation, the war chariots can't fly at the same speed. The battle line will be elongated. You two know what to do, said Shiyan to Fei Lan and Leona. The other two nodded with heavy, murderous auras. It's possible that they end up sending a strong team here while the others stay put. It's the best case anyway. Shiyan had a clear thought. If they send their strongest force, I'll hide so they won't see me. After you're done, come over there and find me. The other two nodded again. Shiyan talked to Zhuo and Xianming, come with me. Xianming and Zhuo quietly followed him. Dash. The butterfly war chariots of the Dark Shadow clan gathered between three glaciers in a fan formation. The second sky of ethereal god realm expert's face darkened while staying in his chariot in the center of their formation. He said, found him. He thought for a while and then said resolutely, I'm going there directly. You guys stay here and don't scatter. The Dark Shadow warriors on the other war chariots regarded him and said that they understand. One of the hovering butterfly war chariots flew away as fast as lightning. Inside the glacier's crack, the youngster was dashing fast. His face grimaced more, his brutal eyes watching over his head, sparkling with malicious light. Ka Tua laughed wildly and continued to release his energy. The crazy, chaotic energy shot out madly, grumblingly pounding on the ice above the youngster's head. The youth was so enraged. He didn't know what kind of mental disorder that madman up there had. Why did he suddenly change his target and aim at me? He must hide away or else that madman would hit him. But if he released his energy, his life magnetic field would appear and the Dark Shadow clansman would find him. Considering between getting instantly damaged or being caught by the Dark Shadow clansman, he determinedly chose the former. He continued to rush while sending his regards to Ka Tuo's family's 18 generations. While he ran madly, The young man who he had just seen with an old man and a lady emerged. That young man smiled, but his eyes didn't smile as he glanced at the area where the teenager was hiding underground. He mocked, "Get up here. Don't you think it's annoying?" The teenager felt chilled, as if a venomous snake was staring at him and he couldn't get away. "I don't want to kill you. I just want to use as bait. Come out." "Don't make me force you," said Sheath with squinted eyes. The youngster struggled in his mind. He used some other soul skills, but he found that he couldn't get rid of the other soul blockade. As he couldn't help it, he emerged from the glacier with a pale face. His hair was a mess of crushed ice. He was so enraged as he said, "What do you want after all?" "Help you survive this dilemma." Sheath chuckled, generating his god domain and covering Katua, the youngster, Swisher, and Xianming. The space around them rippled magnificently as dazzling light emitted around Sheath. Shortly after, they disappeared into the void inside the glacier, leaving not even a single beam of an aura. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.